Yes! Yes, 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 yes! That was a goal! Goal! Striker! Eat that! And another! Bing bang, stick it in. Thank you and good night.
Twat! That was liquid football!
Shit! Did you see that? He must have a foot like a traction engine. Goal!
Hello everybody, it's your old friends at Monday Madness and welcome to this latest episode of the Liquid Football Podcast where we're talking about the anything and anything going on in the world of football. On this episode, I'm joined by Dave and Aaron as we are reviewing the current goings-on the League of Ireland as match day 12. I suppose the first third of the season is already done and in the books, and we're seeing what the contenders are lining up for the league title. Looks like currently a three-horse race between three of the four Dublin clubs, but where's the fourth one? We get to discuss that amongst many other topics, including what's been happening with Derry, who's the surprise package of the season, and why is it Dundalk, and various other parts of the league as well. In the second half of the show, we're going to be switching more to the Premier League and unpacking what's been happening with Arsenal. Why has it all suddenly gone wrong in this league in the stage of three games between a cup final, an FA Cup quarter final, and then the first league game back, which was an early kickoff against Bournemouth. Three massive losses that could very well define Arsenal's season going off the rails. And how can they get it back on? That's what we talk about in the second half of the show. In between all them, we have a couple of CODs at the end of the show and a Winning 11 mini-game at the halfway mark where we talk about another team that slipped up on the way to what seemed to be an inevitable title win, which ended up being a runners-up medal. So all that and more on this week's episode of the Liquid Football Podcast.
Goal!
Okay then, so we're back on the League of Football Podcast here, and it has been a couple of, I suppose technically 2 months since the League of Ireland has started, and we're going to be starting off our show today talking about, I suppose, the quarter-term report, if we can call it that, for the league, because obviously it's a very intense, front-loaded league to make space for all the European commitments in the summer, and obviously we have the World Cup, who's going to be impeding plans ever so slightly for the League of Ireland, but not that much. You'd be shocked to hear there's not many call-ups to the World Cup in our league. But it is our league nonetheless, so we feel like we are obliged to talk about it. So Dave, obviously you have the kind of luxury of watching Shells on a regular basis, and obviously absorbing as much as the league as you can. So if you could kind of assess any of the teams that you've really impressed you this season so far. Obviously most teams have got 11 games under their belt, so we're almost a third of the way through the league already. So who's really caught your eye so far in this?
I mean, I've been looking enough to see quite a few teams at Tolka. Now, Tolka's obviously a tight pitch. It's grass. It's a bit bumpy. It's never everyone's cup of tea. But I think the team that's impressed me most while at Tolka has probably been Dundalk. Dundalk have been outstanding to watch. I love their tempo. Their press is excellent. And teams really struggle to turn the ball over against Dundalk, and I think that's one of the reasons why they're doing so well this season against all expectations. They've probably been the one team that's really just, I've looked at them and gone, no, that's something different, that's something exciting. You know, I can see why their fans are going on the road as well, and I think they had 600 at Tolka there recently when they played Dundalk. And do you know what, I would say they're the most exciting team to watch this season so far.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because obviously we're going back to our predictions from the start of the season. We didn't really give Dundalk that much hope, really. I mean, I know I had them down for relegation personally, which is looking pretty fucking stupid in hindsight. But that's what it is sometimes. Like promoted teams tend to go.
It's the joy of predictions,
you know.
Yeah, it's the joy of predictions, isn't it? Like when you really look at the table, you wouldn't have said Bows have been, as good as they have been this season. We really thought, okay, right, they're going undefeated for a certain amount of games. And I think the biggest drop off, you look at Pats and stuff. Now, Pats have been Pats, right? Great results. And as a Pats fan myself, the most frustrating thing has been this season is consistency once again with Stephen Kenny.
Yeah,
The teams will have a fantastic result one week and hammer teams and then get hammered the next week. It
yeah.
it just blows my mind how inconsistent Pats have been over the last 2 years. And then I mean obviously Dundalk are the big surprise. Galway are not bad. Galway are doing things right.
Mm,
But I think the biggest hitters that we've seen drop off are obviously Shells and Derry. Shells is a
mm.
whole different ball game there. I think like Shells can dominate a game for 90 minutes and get beaten 2-1. That
Yeah,
type of way. I mean they've been beaten 3-2 um 3 times in the last 7 games or something like that, right?
yeah.
And it's always been a comeback score. So they've gone down one or they've gone down two and they've had to claw their way back.
Mm,
They have it. They on paper that team should be really challenging Rovers at the top. On paper, but whatever way, there's a fear in that midfield to push forward when they really could,
yeah.
especially when you have players like Kerr McInroy, um, Mal Lundgren, all these guys that they brought in as well are really good players. I actually Lundgren's probably my pick for one of the best midfielders in the league at the moment.
Okay, interesting.
Um, Across the board, having watched them from start to now.
Yeah.
Um, but ultimately, there's a fear in that midfield for a forward pass. And
Mm,
there's been so many times where I've seen channels open up to the front two or the front three, and they've just not taken them. They've decided to go back and start from the beginning again. And, it doesn't make any sense to me why Joey O'Brien doesn't address this and say, like, okay, lads, play into that channel. If it gets picked off, you just win the ball back. But at
yeah.
least try to get this forward into these channels that the likes of Will Jarvis are making. It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, Harry Wood is a phenomenal player. The amount of times that lad has gotten them out of dodge is unbelievable.
Mm,
Um, but ultimately, yeah, it's the same with Derry. Derry, we'll get on to Derry because I know you want to talk about Derry.
mm.
Um, but what's your thoughts, Jonathan, on Derry? Because they're one of those teams that last season really showed up, and then this season they've just absolutely. I mean, 11 points from 11 games is nothing like the Derry you've seen the last 2 or 3 years.
I think we said it in the preview podcast we did a couple of I think it was 2 months ago now at this stage. Like Derry's kind of strategy this season in particular was very much a very I'm talking about recruitment here now was very much intended to try and win the league this year, and um and while in fairness I can kind of respect it in a sense where like they feel like they have to start kicking now a little bit like they like Derry are kind of perennially the nearly team in the league. It is a kind of thing where they've always kind of got a touch of the Leverkusens about them, where like they will
Yeah,
come close and they'll have like a good kind of generation of a team, but they don't really have anything
yeah,
to show for
yeah,
it. And I think
100%.
a lot is made about the fact that Derry City are like privately owned and they get like millions of euro investment from their owner, um, with without necessarily into the show for it is the
Yeah,
problem.
yeah,
Now, the Derry situation is interesting in a sense because
yeah,
they have recruited well. Like their midfield is fantastic. Like again, you've got Michael Duffy who on his day is the best player in the league. And they've also recruited two of the best number 10s in Markey and Clark. So they have a solid midfield. I think the issue, and he's going to come up later on in the podcast, is James McLean, because there's obviously some sort of agreement or intention that McLean is going to play in the center of midfield. And I wasn't there for the Derry game, like this loop around, but what's very clearly the case is that James McLean is not a central midfielder. He just
he's a
isn't.
winger. He's a
Yeah,
wide player. Like he's always
exactly.
been a
Yeah, yeah.
wide player.
And it's that kind of thing where like you make a decision as a coach if you're Tiernan Lynch. What you can do is you can either identify that he's a problem and then try and work the team around him in a sense, or you can play him in his natural position and basically take it as granted. But the problem is Michael Duffy is the left winger, so you can't have McLean as a backup. You have to use him. So like, what does that lead then? Do you lose him? Do you play him as left wing or like a wing back
Yeah,
maybe, like play a back three? So it's become a bit of a mess for them because as much as they've recruited so much now in terms of the kind of squad depth, because ultimately squad depth is what wins you the league. So like they've recognised that as a lot of clubs in the league as well. If they're really going to challenge Rovers for the league title, they have to have the depth. Because especially when you get into these kind of points of the season where it's 2 games a week, Rovers are the best at mitigating kind of like injuries and rotating squads and being able to eke out results. So Rovers will very rarely win 2 games in a week, but what they'll do is they'll draw a game here and then win a big game elsewhere, and they'll
Yeah,
take
yeah,
points off their rivals. So they'll have taken a draw against Waterford if that meant they could beat Shells and then similarly beat Pats.
yeah,
Then
yeah,
who knows what happens with Bows on Friday. So it's that sort of thing. And I think Derry's issue is that um I think that Derry were really hoping that they'd front load because all their home games have been like kind of advanced this season. I think they were really hoping that they can sustain the home form, and then that'll kind of like, that kind of crest of the wave will keep them going over the summer because they're getting their pitch relayed. But it hasn't happened. There's a lack of goals in the team to a certain degree, especially with the kind of the amount of attacking talent they have. It's all through Michael Duffy. And in previous years, they would have had like a very easy goal scorer like Pat Hoban, who,
yeah,
has a bit of the Harry Kane's about him in a sense. He's a cheap goal scorer. And that's what you need sometimes in a league winning team is just be able to just clock
yeah.
10, 15 like goals a season, like Paul Jarman does for Waterford. Like Waterford really suffering not having Almond all season. Now that he's back in the squad, there's a bit of form about the team again, you know?
Yeah,
Um,
and it's like Liam Boyce. Like Liam Boyce had that calf tear,
yes,
and he was kind of the one that was bringing them into the goals as well, wasn't he? Like Liam Boyce, obviously playing for Hearts, and I've seen him good bit in the Scottish League.
they've also put a lot of faith in Josh Thomas, which is the young
Yeah,
Swansea
that's true.
striker.
Yeah, yeah,
And again, I think Thomas has had like a few dalliances with like I think he might have been up north at one point. So he's not a stranger to league in that sense. But again, it's that kind of
yeah,
central problem is that these lads are coming in when they're out of fitness and they're out of form. Like you mentioned Will Jarvis there, for example. He came back quite late into the window for Shells. And
yeah.
he's obviously
He's not
not
up to match
fresh from
fitness yet.
absolutely.
No,
And I think Derry's problem is that if you look at the majority of their signings, they're all out of form kind of championship blown-ees. Like I'm looking at you mentioned
yeah,
Josh
which
Thomas.
doesn't make any sense. I mean, obviously they've gotten players from York City,
Yeah.
Charlton, Swansea, and even as far afield as Canada and
Yeah, yeah.
Atletico, Ottawa, and the Canadian Premier League.
Mm.
Um, and then you've just got. I don't really, not that I don't agree, but I don't really understand the bringing in of established English not English players,
Well,
players who played in England. The likes of Brandon Fleming, for example, who came in from Hull.
yes.
Like I would, if I was scouting for the League of Ireland, trust players who understand the league and can play in the league. It's kind of like what teams have done around the windows
Mm.
lately, where they brought in the players that they do bring in. They bring in either big lads who are physical and able to cope with the league,
Yeah.
or they brought in players from other clubs who the likes of Cian Levy, who was at Shells and then you know went elsewhere
Mm.
and stuck in the league though. The teams are
Yeah,
bringing
yeah.
in
Yeah.
players from about the league who are out of contract and stuff like that. I think for the next couple of seasons, I think that's the way to go for some teams, like especially if Derry are looking to mount a title challenge, because I don't think it's going to happen this season.
Not the season. No, I think they've lost a
Not
chance
this
now at this
season at
stage.
all. But if they're looking to do it next season, they have to look at the players who are on form in the league, and they have the budget to poach away from those teams.
That's the
Look
thing,
who's
Kevin. Is the fact that, like,
Look
they
who's out of
did recruit some
contract.
of those players. They got, like I said, they
Yeah,
got Markey, who carried that Drogheda team to a certain degree. Like
yeah,
Drogheda's like the first half of Drogheda season last time out was very much determined by Markey and by Douglas James Taylor. So James Taylor got his move to Bowes for cash money, and then Markey got a similar move down to Derry.
yeah.
So it's not as if they recruited like good players. I think that the
No,
problem
true,
is that
true,
for
true.
every League of Ireland established player, they've taken a risk on a championship loanee. So like for every Darren Markey, you've got Barry Cotter, who again, no stranger to League of Ireland. He's played there before, but he hasn't played for 6 months in Barnsley.
Yeah,
And same with like we mentioned Josh Thomas there. Again, Shels have done the same thing. A lot of teams are taking risks in order to keep up with Shamrock Rovers. Because
yeah,
Rovers don't need to like, when they go for a loan signing, for example, it is literally for depth. They like
yeah,
they've got two starting 11s in that team, and that's what makes them so scary. Is that at any given match, you don't know if they're going to be playing Mulroney or Burke, or they're going to be playing
yeah.
Noonan or Green or McGovern. They've got so many options, and
Yeah, like don't get me wrong, Derry have lost their number one to a wrist fracture, which makes
yeah,
sense.
which is
It's
shit.
it's
Yeah,
always going to be really crap. But yeah, like Shamrock Rovers, the last few seasons have been terrifying.
yeah.
When like I remember, 2 seasons ago before Shells won. I think it was the season before Shells won the league.
Yeah.
And I remember it was Rovers and Shells of Talca. And I just, honestly, I remember going, look at that bench for Rovers. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, that is outrageously good for that team to have a bench like that and
Mm.
have players who are content with being the bench for that team. You know what I mean? Because
But
obviously you have to manage
that's the other part of it as
expectations
well, is
as
that
well.
like Shamrock Rovers, like they do plan for a 55 game season. Like that's the thing now, that the club structure is designed for a European run. And therefore that means that like they have to peak at the right time. They have to keep those players in form, keep them fit.
Yeah.
You'll notice that there hasn't been much Dylan Watts in the league so far, and I think a part of that is to make sure that he is still like relatively fresh for Europe, because he's been one of our best players in Europe in the last 2 seasons. Particularly in the kind of playmaking role he's had. Now, in fairness, Danny
Yeah.
Mandrew kind of stepped up to the plate big time. Um, especially in the game against Santa Clara, he already scored that goal that would ultimately get us
Yeah.
to the league phase. So he's out with his ACL injury, probably won't be back until late to summer, and chances are he probably
Yeah.
won't play at all. So, but that's
Yeah.
also why Rovers have brought in so much width and pace. Like the biggest thing I've noticed from Rovers this season is that they've really had a massive injection of pace, which they didn't have last season. Really, they were quite a static team last year. A lot of it is down to their age, because it's a relatively quite. I'd say it's quite an old team. Like, so a lot of senior players are like from
It is coming.
20s,
Yeah, it
30s
is
now.
coming. It is coming to that back end of their career for some
Yeah.
of them.
Um,
If you look at Aaron Green is 36, Rory Gaffney's 36,
yeah.
Graham Burke's 32, and they're the only real ones that are up there. You have Adam Matthews is 34,
Yes.
and Enda Stevens 35, 33 for Lee Grace, 33 for Pico Lopez,
Mm.
33 for Lee
Lee
Stacey, and
Stacey,
he's
yeah.
only the backup keeper.
Exactly, but that's
So
that's the other part of it. Like, with the exception of Pico and probably Burke, a lot of those lads now are squad players.
yeah,
So instead of like Lee Grace wouldn't be playing every game now. Like, he'd probably be the like I wouldn't say he's deputy, but certainly Corey O'Sullivan gets a start ahead of him.
yeah,
And again, it's for the reasons of he has the legs, he has the width. Lee
yeah,
Grace is normally somebody who will come in to shut up shop towards the end. Dan Cleary, if he's
yeah,
fit, he will start. So, and obviously Rovers have
yeah.
this kind of patented kind of back three system that's very fluid, and there's no one any necessarily in
Yeah, and
positions.
you got Jack Byrne there, who's in the prime of his life, who should be in the prime of his life at 29.
Yeah.
I
He's had a
think,
good season now. Again, he is now back playing the position that he should have been playing last season. This is the place in the squad he wasn't happy with, because Byrne has always been a wide player, like a playmaker out the flanks. But now that you've had so much better midfielders come into the squad since, like
yeah,
Matt Healy, Dylan Watts is obviously a kind of a monster in that sense, and a few others there that can play in those kind of central roles. They want to get Byrne in the team.
yeah,
The only way they can is put him there as a kind of
yeah.
like doing
How
this
was
with him doing the same job.
how has Asamoah been getting on? I've not seen much of him since coming in from Wigan, but I've been interested since his arrival. Like, how has he been getting on as
Um,
obviously a part of that forward running?
Yeah, like he's being deployed out in the out wide, which I think is probably standard enough, because, like I said, there's like four players there that can play the number 9 role at
Mm,
Rovers, between McGovern and Noonan, and then you mentioned Gaffney and Green as the kind of the senior kind of like players. So Asamoah's real kind of role is out wide as a squad option, really. Like, he doesn't. No, he's started a lot more like league games than I thought he would. I'll be honest. And again, I think a lot of it is because he is that outboard engine in the
yeah,
sense of the team. Like, he is the kind of breakaway ball in the same way that Adam Brennan would be on the left. So Asamoah is the same on the right, and in theory, Mulroney should be that as well. Although what's interesting is that Mulroney now is being deployed as a wing back. In the Shells game that you mentioned there, we won 3-2. Mulroney was playing right wing back, which a lot of people kind of expected at the start of the season as well, because that's been
yeah,
something that Bradley has done, is basically play wingers as wing backs and kind of tactically cover up that kind of defensive weakness with
yeah,
players behind them and players in front of them. Um, but I think what the biggest kind of revelation this season though is actually Subawale, because he's come in from St. Mirren, and again he was kind of intended to be a wing back. He was ultimately the
yeah,
replacement for Josh Honahan in the squad. Um, Again, a lot of people kind of presume that Enda Stevens was that replacement, but actually Enda is pretty much a stand-in for Pico when he goes to the World Cup,
yeah,
because he's more centre back now than wing back, really at this
mm,
stage of his career. So Subawale has been presumed to be the right wing back who's going to bomb up the flanks, left, right, and centre. But what's actually happened is he's moved into the back three, which is something I didn't expect personally. And what's more fascinating about it is that he's actually advances from the back three. So when they're in possession, Subawali will step into midfield and become a third man in that slot. Means that Byrne can go and then Healy can go. So it's a very fluid formation. That's I think that's one that's catching a couple of teams out at the moment. So teams that are willing to play football with Rovers are losing
Yeah,
those games because they've had to play. The only team that really have had Rovers' number this season has been Bows. But Bows have a pretty solid game plan that always seems to work against Rovers.
yeah,
And that's basically just high pressure, flood the midfield, don't let them play, essentially. So
yeah.
it'll be interesting to see what happens now on Friday up in Tala. But and it's gonna be a cracking game. It always is, in fairness to them. The Bows always give us a good game. Um
Yeah, that's going to
yeah.
be a good one. I mean, it's a big Friday because obviously we've got Shells and Derry at Talca, got
Yes.
Rovers and Bows,
That's a
in
very important
Tala.
game now for both teams, Shelton and Derry.
Both teams,
Yeah.
because this has to be a game where either team has to lift themselves up here because a draw would be the absolute worst outcome for these teams. Just to
Mm,
grab a point from each from the game for each of them would
yeah.
probably be the worst possible outcome. Um, Switch it to Waterford. I mean, Waterford last season they stayed up comfortably
Mm,
in the play well in ninth spot, right?
yeah.
Do you
I wouldn't
think
say that comfortably,
because
yeah.
Cork City had that capitulation, Aaron, and they went down
I don't know
that
why you're bringing that up. I even fought a Cork hockey.
Aaron has been absorbing all this information since the start of
I'm
the
abs-
podcast. Now he's getting dragged into it like kicking
I'm
and
getting
screaming.
dragged into it for no reason. I'm catching strays here when I'm just
Yeah.
sitting here, just enjoying myself. Because while he talks, I'm doing football manager.
Now when you say enjoying
So
yourself, what do you mean by that now? Because we are
I'm
as good
I'm very
talking,
much I'm very much enjoying myself.
Yeah.
You
Let the
can't.
rest
That's the
of you know
reason
you
you can
play
only
football
see.
manager and not doing anything more insidious than that, just so we're clear.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
No, let's be very clear. No, no.
yeah.
We need to keep the YouTube revenue coming
Yeah.
in.
Well, I mean, Waterford has been that team, hasn't it? That have oh well, last season it was Cork, this season it's us.
Well, it's also with the certainly a lot has been made about the fact that Waterford have made a lot of have had a great lot of changes to the squad, which is
Mm,
often the case. Like a lot of teams just do have a bit of a squad churn. I think John Daly has certainly made a point of trying to uh, elevate the youth in the team. Again, with the exception of
yeah,
Pajam, and the majority of the team are kind of mid-20s and younger, so it's a very very young team.
yeah,
Um, and now I think what's really helped them out is actually Kevin Long coming in to basically bolster up the defensive positions because
yeah.
again, it's a lot of young players, a few loanees from Fleetwood and stuff like that, which is going to happen.
Yeah.
It's kind of inevitable.
You think like Connor Carty and Tommy Lonergan coming in
Mm.
would have been ideal in that forward line to keep the goals flowing.
Well,
But I suppose it all
that's the
comes
thing
down
though.
to the yeah,
That's the problem with that with having Am in the team is that they've been so dependent on him for the goals. Lonergan has a lot of potential, and so does Connor Carty. But Connor Carty had a terrible season at Pats. He was dreadful,
yeah,
and there's no nice way to say it. He was just absolutely terrible.
yeah,
Again, to the extent where it was actually Conan Noonan who was getting the majority of the playmaking and goals and assists last season. Hence
yeah.
why he's got a permanent move to Waterford this season. And rightfully so, he's a fantastic player. Unfortunately, just Rovers would not be able to give him the game time he deserves because
Uh,
unfortunately he is playing in the same position
yeah.
as five of our best players.
I mean, Waterford are overloaded with defenders though. Like they are
Mhm.
absolutely washed with defenders compared
Yeah,
to the midfield and forward line.
and that
That's
now John
something
Daly
they.
does play a back three, so that kind of makes sense. Like he's a
Yeah,
back
no, I
back
get.
manager. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, but at the same time, you want to at least have a bit of depth because
Mm.
one injury to the likes of Noonan, or Lucchini or one of them,
Yeah.
that's going to cripple them.
Well, again, it shows in the kind of in the numbers there that they haven't won a game all season yet. But
Yeah,
now there has been definitely an upturn in form since Kevin Long has come in.
true.
I think he has been able to just kind of steward the team, the defense a little bit better. They were quite good against us now. In fairness, we weren't that good against them when we came back from the international break, and they definitely put the shits up Bowles away from home as well.
Yeah,
So they clearly have a game plan now since they kind of put that final piece in the puzzle. But the problem is that are they gonna be able to make up enough ground to overtake Sligo and potentially Drogheda It's hard to say. I think
Yeah,
Drogheda will be fine
yeah,
as well. I think Drogheda just have a lot of players that are kind of bedding in, and they have a certain style to how they play. So Drogheda will win enough games to be kind of solid
yeah,
mid-table.
yeah,
Derry will be really shitting themselves now if they don't get their act together with this team. Um, as you said, Dave, like they're missing Brian Marr, they're going to be missing Michael Duffy for a bit. The injuries are starting to pile up a little bit. Especially if James
yeah.
McLean is actually injured. More on that later, folks. So it is that kind of thing where like you know
Yeah,
it's a sort of situation where like the complete like especially in a league as tight as the League of Ireland,
yeah,
complacency is the biggest killer. If you go on a horrendous dip in form, you can go from third to ninth in very quick succession.
yeah.
But I suppose like we might as well turn to like the elephant in the room has actually been Dundalk. Really, let's be fair. Like Dundalk have come in and they've been absolutely fantastic. I was
Yeah.
really impressed with them in the game against Sosa at home, second game of the
And
season.
I have to say, the only thing that will derail Dundalk massively is they have a very small squad and they have the lowest budget in the league. However, one or two injuries to that squad and they're done.
Yeah.
When they were at Tolka, I looked at the team sheet. I had a look at their bench and I thought, wow, okay, they're really counting on this starting 11 to stay fit.
Mm,
And that's why they're doing so well. Their starting 11 is really, really good. But the second you take two of them out of there,
yeah.
that whole system goes down. And I
Yeah.
suppose that they're really counting on the player management and the man management of that team
Definitely.
to keep them. If I were them, I'd be like, right, okay, get us safe,
Mm,
get us to that points barrier where we know we'll stay up for this season, and then we can maybe start rotating, or giving players a rest for a game or two.
yeah.
Because Shells are the biggest sufferer of injuries at the moment. Obviously, lost Paddy Barrett, the captain. They lost their record signing Oren Casey really early on, first or
Yeah.
second game, and now Milan and Beng, who's been their right wing back, who's been flying,
Mm,
is now out injured as well. They're three key players for Shells that
yeah.
they've lost. Um, I will say that's part of the reason why they're leaking so many goals. I mean, they're
Yeah, of
scoring
course. Yeah.
goals, but they're
Um,
leaking more goals than they're scoring, and that's the big issue.
well, it's evident in the set pieces. Like I said,
Mm,
the last game I was at was the Rover, was the shot, was the Ringside Derby, and
yeah,
again, Rovers like winning from the game basically off two set pieces. Like the first
yeah.
coming from a corner. Actually, no, it was both from corners. Actually, I think wasn't it? Was one from for a free kick and then a corner? I can't
Yeah,
recall.
and one from a corner. 'Cause, I mean, it was the same
Yeah.
against Dundalk, and it was the same
Yes.
against
Exactly. Yeah.
um, the Pats game as well. The
Yeah.
Pats game was a key uh, kind of watershed moment for them, where every set piece was getting through because
Mm,
Paddy Barrett's not there. Paddy Barrett is obviously the captain. He holds that back line together,
yeah. Yeah.
and when you put that on obviously Kerr McInroy is a great captain, but Kerr McInroy is all about the midfield. He's about pushing the team forward from the midfield up.
Yeah.
As much as I like the guy, he's had to kind of almost look over his shoulder to make sure that that defensive line is holding. And for the most part of the season, it really isn't, because you're losing that partnership of Barrett and Oren Casey, which they're basing so much of their defense on, and that's just gone. I don't know
Yeah.
how long they're going to be out for.
Mm.
Um,
Well,
but you're
I'd say
talking. I
they're
mean,
missing
yeah,
Mark Coyle a lot as well as a defensive midfielder. Like I mean, McEnroy is a very good midfield, is a pretty much a decent all rounder. But Mark Coyle was such a good defensive screen. Like he was a big part of
yeah.
why that Damien Duff team worked in the league winning season because he
I
took
was
a
very
lot of the heavy.
surprised.
Yeah,
Yeah, very surprised when he left, because he was one of the standouts. I've been at Talca now for 3 seasons,
yeah,
and he was always one of the standouts. Did the dirty work, got stuck in,
yeah.
wasn't afraid to take a yellow card when it was needed.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah,
you're right. You're right. Mark Coyle has been a big miss, and it's not just me saying it. There are people at Talca who are saying it,
yeah.
that they're missing Mark Coyle big time, because he was that when they were playing the 4-3-3, he
Mm,
was kind of dropping in between the two centre halves, and always making a bank
splitting
of
them. Yeah,
three off the ball, and it was always good to just break up the attack that way.
yeah.
But it's just they're out of options at the back, because Ibsen Rossi's a great looking prospect. He
Mm,
looks very, very solid at the back, and I'm a big fan of him. I think he's really, really good.
yeah.
But again, he's only in the door. Sam Bone is a good squad player, but he's not a starting centre back.
Mm,
So James Norris, again, he's a young lad, 23, did really well last season. Obviously got the permanent move from Liverpool, but he's been in and out of the squad this season. So I don't
yeah.
know how that's working with him. And JJ Lunny, as much as I love the guy and he's done really well the last few seasons, especially in the league winning season, he's not showing up this season. I think it was because the loss of Mark Coyle. He had a great partnership with Mark Coyle.
I think that's a
Um,
big part of it as well, is that like when you have
yeah,
someone who is so used to the defensive work of it and then now it's your turn to do it.
yeah,
Again, it's that kind of thing where like you see it in the Premier League all the time. When you break up a midfield like trio, let's say, when you take one piece out of it and you replace it
yeah,
with someone else, and they're just not quite up to speed. Like I know you mentioned
yeah,
Lundgren there, who has a great load of potential, but
yeah,
the problem is that like you don't really have a chance to breathe in the art in League of Ireland from my kind of like
yeah.
reading of it is that like you are very much like in it from day one. Um, I'd like to see probably more of Henry Francis, to be honest. That is
Great,
probably my
great,
thing as
great,
well.
great young player.
Yeah.
Has a ton of, I mean, a ton of potential, not just for Shells, but from a
Hmm.
sell-on point of view, he has a lot of
Oh
potential.
yeah.
I, I,
Well,
I genuinely think like he is going to be a key player over the next few seasons if they manage to keep him. With Lundgren, what I love about Lundgren is, and the thing that pisses me off a lot about the League of Ireland is you have a lot of players who I know everyone loves when a winger runs at their man and takes them
yeah.
on, right? But it's another thing of succeeding when you run and take your man on and not get the
Mm,
ball nicked off you every time. And Lundgren is so good with the ball at his feet at the moment. When you know when he runs at his man, there's I'd say a 75% chance he's getting past. And not
yeah.
just one, then the next one. Like, once he gets into a rhythm, he'll go
Mm.
past two or three of them at once. Um, and
That
the
you know
pro,
what? That's actually one thing I really like about the League of Ireland generally is that it hasn't kind of fallen into this like this kind of fad now where we'll probably talk about it in a different podcast when we're reviewing the Premier League outright. But I think the Premier League really has had a big problem with pace in the last
oh
year
yeah,
or two. Like a lot of it is like,
yeah,
and again, I think a lot of like managers kind of talk about it in a sense where they're saying, "Oh, if people just stop man marking us, would be great." It was like, but man marking's the whole point. Like you had to nullify and neutralize your
yeah,
team.
exactly.
But the problem is that like there's no teams that are actively like, say drawing people out to break a man marking like kind of like situation and like playing it over like a ball over the top to a winger and
Yeah,
the winger has to take it first time and then go. That one thing I would say about the League of Ireland is that it doesn't have that problem. Most
no,
teams have invested in a fast player. Like I
yeah,
think we mentioned Dundalk earlier on. I think the biggest like triumph that Dundalk have had is the fact that they have really like, got another like good year out of Daryl Horgan, who's a proper
oh yeah, yeah,
old-fashioned winger. But even Arubi has been fucking fantastic for him.
very good player.
Like he's been again, it's that sort of raw pace that he has. Um, and even if that doesn't work for them, what
And
they
he's
can
a
do is
tank.
they can get on Owen Kenny with the same kind of pace as well.
Yeah.
So it's that sort of thing.
A Ruby's funny because when he played at Talca, they were using him more as a center forward, a target
He
man
is my
nearly.
trade centre forward. Yeah.
And I just think it like I love seeing a center forward who's built like a tank and obviously got the goal at the header and
Mm.
stuff like that. It was a really good, well worked goal.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. But like, again,
they've done it right.
yeah. But it's I think that it's the way killed off plays his football. It's very high press, it's very high intensity, and very front foot. Like it's very aggressive and it's very much like attack best form of defense. Like he was like that with Athlone Women for the
Yeah,
start of his career, and again, I was there for the FAO Cup final where they beat Shells, and they had no right beating that Shells team. They really, really didn't. But what they did exceptionally well was hassle and press and harangue them and foul them and just be very, very snug in the tackle to the extent where they got like a very last minute winner, won the penalty shootout, and that cup win really did propel that Athlone team to 2 years of like league success to the extent
yeah,
where they were nearly in the Champions League. So that should tell you how good they are. But again, it's that sort of thing where like if he is anyway good like that as a coach, if that is his philosophy, then he's gonna really love it in the League of Ireland because again, at the moment in the dog, they only have to worry about the league. They don't have to worry
yeah.
about European commitments. They can attack
No,
now. They can go
yeah.
early in a sense. And
Agreed.
as you said, Dave, their strategy is just to get enough points to get out of the bottom two. Once they're eighth or higher, then their whole situation with Dundalk calms then because they'll get the UEFA money next year. They'll be able to stay in the league. Then they have at least a bit of insurance of what they can do in
Agreed.
terms of like their squad building. So they just have to keep plugging away. Um, I suppose like another. Do you know what I had to say? another surprise package this season has been Pats for me as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like I've caught up on the highlights of most games because obviously being a talker for the season,
Mm.
I don't get to watch everything live. Um, and do you know what? Edmondson's really impressed me.
Yeah.
Uh,
It shows
the
you target
last
men still work
oh,
in this day and age.
the two goals he scored against Shells were so good. Like,
Mm.
because he'd done nothing up to that point. Obviously, he was just getting used to kind of settling in on that. But
Yeah.
that was kind of like, see, when he scored those two goals, I thought, right, he's going on a run here. You
Mm.
know, he's settled in now. He's got that little bit of confidence. He's really impressed me the last few games. And I think the one thing about Pats for me is just get rid of that inconsistency. And I think they've done that this season because they've only lost, what, two games?
2 games, yeah, and both of them were against
You know?
Rovers. Yeah.
So, I mean, realistically, you have to take that with a pinch of salt when it's against a team like Rovers. I understand you want to win those games, but if you're going to lose against anyone in the league, you know, if
Yeah.
it's Rovers, at least there's a little hint of, well,
But
okay, it's Rovers. You
well,
know,
much to that point where like Bows always seem to have Rovers' number tactically. Rovers always
yeah,
seem to have Stephen Kenny's number, and it's like again, everyone plays themselves 4 times every season. Normally, I think it normally works out as like 3 wins for Rovers and one win for Pats. And again, it's always down to the timing of the fixture as well. Typically, like end of season games normally go the way of Pats because one will be in Europe and the other one isn't. Um, and especially around the summer, the kind of summer season, let's say, if there is a derby around that time, then it usually goes the same way. Again, I think Pats will probably benefit this year from not having to worry about Europe this season because sometimes it can be very hit and miss. It can really
yeah,
gel a
true,
team
true.
together and make things click. Whereas this season, I
Yeah.
think really what they just needed was to be able to do essentially what Dundalk are doing now and just go early and get their league position. Because like I said,
Now,
Harry
Pats are
yourself
on the,
spoken, then Pats are the biggest beneficiary of that.
yeah, I mean, Pats are obviously on a back-to-back losing run now. Dundalk and Rovers have to come in this Friday now and get the job done this Friday because the last thing you want
Mm,
is to shift into that just that thing of you know how bad a losing run can be
yeah,
when you slip into that, you know. So they've got an away. It's away against Drogheda. It's not easy,
no,
not by a
definitely not.
long shot. But this team has to win away from home against Drogheda because if it doesn't, and you're
Mm,
looking at three losses on the trot, the more losses you gather, you know, I know it's a simple thing to say, the tougher it is to get out of this rut.
yeah,
So if they win, or at least even I take a draw against Drogheda away, I take that as a positive, just getting back on track and getting the points on the board. Because
mm,
then you got Bows then the week after on
yeah,
Friday at home. You know what I mean? You have Bows at home, which is a massive game for them then on the 24th.
definitely, yeah.
So, yeah, you know, then they've got back to back away against Galway and Sligo. So get a point or more against Drogheda. You know, try and do your best against Bows at home.
Mm.
Keep that momentum going because to be in the top two, Pats haven't been there for a while.
Yeah, again,
um,
they're like Bowes last season, where Bowes went on that great early run or early season run,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
they ran out of a bit of steam. Again, Bowes are very similar to Pat in a sense, where like they're a very very good team on their day, but it's just they're just not consistent. Bowes don't travel well, and like and again, when if you're dropping points at home as well, that's not particularly a good sign either. Like again, I don't think Bowes are inherently a bad team. Like again, I think they're a lot of their kind of proverbial points are in their midfield. They have probably, again, like starting 11 wise, they probably have one of the best midfields in the league. Just the pivot between Devoy and Tierney is absolutely fucking phenomenal. And then add in, like, again, you've added in now Sadou Diallo, who played that fucking beautiful pass for Whelan to score that goal against Sligo. Again, they would end up
Yeah,
losing that game in the end, but that goes to show you they
yeah,
shouldn't have lost that game. That was a game where like it was in their hands from the very beginning. They got all the
yeah,
players there.
yeah.
It's just not clicking sometimes, and it's just like form momentum is like so massive in the league, especially around this time of year. From let's
I
say
mean,
match day, what's it from like from basically from March to May is where the league is won usually.
yeah.
That's
If you
also.
look at if you look at the form table, right, the last
Mm,
five games, um, last five games for Dundalk. Dundalk are top of the form table at the moment,
yeah.
um, with 3 wins and 2 draws out of the last five games. Rovers exact same, 3 wins, 2 draws.
Mm,
So it's really crazy that like with the form guide, Dundalk are top of the table,
yeah.
11 points, tied with Rovers, right?
Hmm.
And if they keep that up, they're going to be in the top four. But the biggest slip off there is Pats, because they've allowed those two losses to creep in.
Yeah.
Puts them below Galway United in the form guide, which is crazy. Obviously, they've got a game postponed against Shells this weekend. Um,
Galway are one of those teams where, like, yeah, and they their form good is always going to fluctuate because they're great at home and then pretty poor away.
yeah,
Like, they're also quite bad travelers in that sense. But again, a lot of the teams outside the Dublin kind of sphere are bad travelers in a sense. They do
yeah,
tend to sustain their home form sustains them over the season. Sligo's the same way. Sligo
yeah,
have to win a lot of their home games, like at the showgrounds, or else they don't really have a solid season. But again, Sligo are one of those ones where they'll reach a decent run of form towards the second half of the season, accrue enough points so they're out of danger. Finishing eighth or seventh is enough for Sligo in that sense. Um, but again, it's always that sort of thing where, like, just if you're serious about the league, you have to put the run on now. This is the time to
yeah.
kick.
Because Bows have effectively capitulated. Four draws and one loss in the last five games.
Yeah.
They've effectively like, oh, we went on a great start of the season. Now we can't maintain it. We can't see a win out. First loss of the season. So
Mm.
this is a big important time for them as well. This is going to show how well this team reacts to, a really, really mediocre run since having a good start. So
Yeah.
I mean, we look forward to this weekend because it's going to be a cracking set of games this weekend.
Oh yeah.
Um,
We'll probably do another check
yeah,
in now once the Premier League season is over, outright before the World Cup starts.
yeah.
But I suppose, like, while we are at this point now and we move on to our next segment, what's the biggest stories you're keeping an eye on? What do you think are the biggest, like, actual headlines in the league so far? Like, if we were to pick out three stories from the league, what would you pick as your three?
I would pick Dundalk's.
Or rather, what's the
Just
stories that you're looking for? What's your narratives going into the rest of the season, I should say, as opposed to what's happened so far?
Okay, how far Dundalk can go
Yeah.
is probably my top one because
Mm.
we all love an underdog story of them going on a mad run, and
Yeah.
yeah, Dundalk's probably my top one. Um, the second one's probably Joey O'Brien, um,
Okay.
because of being in the stadium. You feel things among the fan base and among the people around you, and it
Mm.
just seems to be like the investment was there for him. The players that he wanted were brought in. Yes, you could look at the injuries as a big, part to play in that, because obviously Paddy Barrett and Oren Casey, who was their record signing, went
Yeah.
out early doors. Don't know when they're coming back. But nonetheless, the other players should be able to step in and plug that gap.
Mm.
That's not really been the case. And now they've got a big game against Derry on Friday. And if they lose that, you're slipping down into Waterford Sligo territory.
Yeah.
And that's not after the league win and the European run, getting into the Conference League proper. If you're a Shells fan, you don't want to be slipping backwards. And so I'm keeping an eye on the Joey O'Brien situation, how Shells are really gonna do in the next 3 to 4 games to try and lift themselves out of where they just don't want to be.
Yeah.
And the third one I would say is just, is it Waterford? Is it just Waterford's turn
Mm.
where Cork City went down? Is it this season Waterford? Is it just, well, it's our turn now, or is there going to be a late surge of, oh shit, are Sligo going to be pulled into the
Yeah.
relegation fight now, even though Sligo are a half decent team? We did speak early on about how competitive this league was going to be. From the get-go, we knew it was going to be a competitive league
Yeah.
this season, and it's shown that. But my third story then will be Waterford.
Mm.
Are they just looking at it as if, oh well, it's our turn, when they shouldn't be, obviously, and they're not trying to be, but it just seems that way from the outright, just seems that way to me.
Yeah, that's fair. I like I said, I think a lot of it is always dependent on how the promoted team does, or promoted teams, I should say, because we
Yeah,
remember we had that season where Galway and Waterford came up, and they immediately put the shits up the rest of the league. Like, I think Cork went down
yeah,
that season as well, and was it the season that Dundalk got relegated? I can't remember, but certainly, like, it was that sort of thing where, like, if the promoted team comes out the traps and is an improvement on the league already, that really does scare a lot of teams,
yep,
and obviously, like, the ninth place is a bit of a safety net in a sense, because, like, you're typically going to win the playoff as a Premier Division team. It's very rare you lose it. Again, that's what happened with Cork, was that fact that, like, they lost that playoff against Waterford and it was just a bit of a disaster. It was actually UCD that went down that season. I remember now.
yeah.
Um, But again, it's that sort of thing where like there's you could make an argument now that like the 10 like club league doesn't really work anymore because there's kind of a top 12 now. Like Cork are very
Yeah,
clearly like gonna walk the first division. Like they haven't even lost a game this
yeah.
season. Um, and it's a bit of a scramble then for that other position. But usually it's UCD. They normally have a Premier license anyway. So it's either going to be UCD or maybe possibly Bray. But again, it's such a scramble and a brawl in that first division that like no one can really stand out as that, you know.
Well, should it go down the Scottish route of having a 12-team first division 10-10-10?
Well, that's
I
do
know we
you
have
know
a
what it is?
national
Like
league coming up,
it's always
but
that
that
kind of
seems to work.
argument in the sense that like the actual quality of the football is brilliant.
Mm,
Like it is genuinely a case where like there's no bad games in the league in a sense. Like everything matters. Everything has purpose or consequence. There's a derby most weeks. And that's only by virtue of the fact that like yeah, four of the teams are in Dublin, two of them are Louth, and the rest are either in out west or out in
yeah.
Munster, you know? Like
Is
they
it is it
literally
Wa- is it Waterford's ground that has those stupid sports centre goals at the end of the pitch?
yes, because it's in the RSC, yeah, the Regional Sports Centre, yeah.
Fucking hate them goals.
Yeah. But like that's
Anything with wheels, just get it out of league. It doesn't belong in the Premier League.
again, we had this conversation about problems with the pitches all season as well, so I suppose
Mm,
no surprise. I suppose my three stories, if I wanted to pick them out, I think the top one is Derry. Um,
okay.
like Derry has like this was Derry's like a chance to win the league this season with the business they've done,
It's
and
gone the first quarter.
they're the biggest disappointment by a country mile. And again, it's a lot of it
Yeah,
is like is just the recruitment that they've done has just not worked. A lot of it has
yeah,
backfired for different reasons. So like the club on the team on paper, again, if you
yeah,
were to take the form guide out of it, just like if you sim a match on Football Manager with that team, they probably would be challenging the top two or
yeah,
three. But just the issue is with them, the players that they brought in are either not fit for the league in terms of fitness wise, and some of them are just being played out of position to accommodate for like actual form players. So I think if you're looking at player managers that are in trouble, I can only think of Tanner Lynch. Like I think he is the one that like you're
yeah.
looking at. If there's anyone going to be getting turfed out, I think it probably is going to be him. And so I do
That's
think
not
that
going to
match
be
against
playing
Shells
anyway.
will be a bit of a P45 derby in that sense. If he does not get that result, if he
I
doesn't
really
lose,
think it will be. I
yeah.
genuinely think and it's not something I ever want to see a manager. At the end of the day, it's a person with a job. You
Mm.
don't ever want to wish anyone out of a job,
Well, again,
but
it's
it's
it's, it's
gonna.
also the kind of other context of it because again, Derry are running out of excuses for not winning the league, is what I'll say because they've
Yeah.
they've upgraded the Brandywell, so they have
Yep.
a beautiful new stand there now, and that's kind of closing the stadium a bit better, so they have better attendance, and therefore more money into the club, all that sort of stuff. Not relying on the Philip Doherty money as much. Then you got the relaying of the surface now this season, so they're now going to be playing on grass from the summer, which is brilliant. It's long overdue. The lads themselves hate playing on Astro, and from last season they've been training up in the Derry GAA camp. So now they have a proper training facility for the first time because I think otherwise they're going to Belfast for training, which is just not good enough. So now they're actually been able to like live in the city proper. I think
Yeah.
most of
Nobody
the
should be
plays in Belfast
traveling.
anyway, but
I know in the lower divisions in Scotland, it's funny because you have players who play for the likes of Elgin
yeah, yeah,
and Inverness who actually live in the central belt and they train like
yeah,
once a week up there and another night with a different club down there and
yeah,
they
yeah,
only go for match
absolutely.
days. But to
But
have
even
to
having a
travel
base
to
of operations
Belfast,
is a vast improvement on what they had before. So the fact that they're able to do that now, and again, it's the fact that like you've got the players, you've got your training, you've got your pitch, you've got your stadium. What's stopping you? You know? And unfortunately, it could be the case where okay, now we need to change manager because
yeah.
this approach isn't working. And again, this is before they get to Europe. This is before they start doing all the European adventures. And if they can't
And
stick the landing here, they're going to be in
if
trouble.
if you're ever gonna have to change manager, do
Mm,
it now. You're gonna have to do it now because if you bring someone in May, there's no time to prepare for Europe
yeah.
because you have the summer break on top of that.
Exactly, yeah. Exactly.
So good luck. That's
It's a
all I
tough
can
one.
say to you.
It's a tough one.
You know.
I do believe Shells are going to be okay in the end. I think it's this kind of thing where like I've noticed that a lot of teams that do like Rovers in particular are always slow starters. But again, the reason for that is
Yeah.
that they prepare for the season based on the European leg of the season as opposed to the start.
Mhm.
So the fact that like Rovers are already at top in get match day 11 normally
Yeah.
indicates that they're going to win the league. And again, that's not me, but to my home, that is like statistically normally how it goes. That if they're there, if they're in the region or at least leading the league at that point, they tend to keep the league lead, I should say. Especially because a lot of teams just keep taking points off each other. Just Rovers just do enough to win certain games. So I think they're in a good place, and they're certainly playing a lot better football than they did last season. That's for sure. I think what's going to be interesting is actually who's going to be their nearest contender, because all three teams that are kind of there, because I will consider Dundalk as a contender for now until otherwise stated. They've scored the most goals in the league. They've also conceded a lot of them, to be fair, but they've scored the most goals.
Just a quick one. Is that kind of like
Nope.
Oh, he's crashed.
because I've said nothing in this entire thing? Can Bielsa I'm crashed.
You're back now. Go on.
Again.
Go again.
All right, there we go.
Yeah, typical stay silent for the whole thing. Come in at the end. Go on.
No. It's just a general question.
Yeah.
With Dundalk, which you're saying there, they scored the most and they've conceded the most.
Yeah.
Is it kind of like with Leeds when they came up the first time with Bielsa, and it's just like they may not be winning all that much, but fuck, it's fun to watch.
Do you know what it is, Aaron? It's more like, again, from seeing them live, they just they're a cavalier team. Like I think they normally play like a 3-4-3. So it's very vertical. Like they once the ball is out of their pitch, they are bombing it forward, and they're definitely got like an intention of trying to like do little pressure points in midfield. Like I wouldn't be like Cavalier is almost like a little bit unfair because it almost like kind of implies that they're reckless. It really isn't. It's targeted high press. Like they are finding choke points in the midfield. Especially against technical teams, like very erudite teams, they seem to really like kind of go against.
They push them back and leave them without options until they're forced to go long, and then they pounce. That's what they did against Shells, and it worked a treat.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And again, not surprised they beat Pats as well, because Pats are one of the more technical teams in the league, and they got a draw against Rovers. So I'd be expecting a tougher game against them again in Oriel Park. So it's the same thing where like they have their approach at the moment is really, really working, because a lot of other teams in the league, like say Galway and Drogheda, they go the opposite way. They tend to slow the game down and to stop chances from coming in, which is a perfectly fair approach as well. But Dundalk on the opposite way, they're actually keeping the ball in play the most, and
just gung ho, gung ho.
Yeah, exactly, and it's good. Again, that's the way Kilduff set his team is that lone team up, and they walked the league, and they won cups as a result. So that is his style, and if it works for him, brilliant. Because I think
it's better than Arsenal. We can all say it's better than Arsenal. So
do you know what? As I said, like it's just nice to go to a football league where everyone actually tries to play football.
Yep.
Like even the more like kind of pragmatic teams like Galway and Drogheda, they have a press, they have wingers, they have forwards, they actually shoot, they actually try. There's no stopping for a throw or a corner and shit like that. They actually do try. You know, it's nice. So yeah, that's my second story. Is the rivalry between the three Dublin clubs at the top, and I suppose third story I think is you're probably right with the Waterford thing. I think like is it the fact that like are they done? Is it just the entropy of it all? I think genuinely could be a case where like can Sligo and Drogheda drag Derry into a bit of a mess? You know, that'll be the main thing as well. It's literally, can they get their act together enough? Because again, Sligo have won 2 games now on the bounce too. So it's like, oh shit, they might actually have something here too as well. Like once Waterford win a game, I think they'll absolutely get something out of it. So we'll have to wait and see. Okay then, so with that then, that's our League of Ireland wrap up for the moment. We'll be back later on the season. We're going to have a lot of match days in April and May. So by the time we come back then, we'll be already at the halfway mark, which is fucking insane to say. But it is a quick turnaround league. So for that, we're going to move on then to different things with our round of Winning 11.
Da, 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 da.
Thank you for that transition. So, so this winning 11 is not about the League of Ireland this week. We are now switching over to our Premier League coverage, and very much as a little appetite teaser, as a little aperitif, as an amuse bouche to what we're going to be talking about next. We're talking
Or Aaron,
about
who is an amuse douche.
he's an amuse douche, yes, absolutely. So what we're going to be talking about in a few minutes in our second half of our show is about slip-ups and the chemistry of it all and how it happens. How can you avoid it? What do you need to do to prevent it from happening? And what better way to go and look back at the last slip-up that we had in the league, the one that's the most documented, shall we say? Because I know there's ones that are statistically slip-ups and all that jazz, and some of them aren't. But the one that really kind of like narratively served as a slip-up was the Brendan Rodgers season at Liverpool.
110%.
Where it was very much a case where like they came so close, and yet so very far, and there were very much two incidents where the slip up really very much happened. There was a game against Chelsea, where Steven Gerrard famously slipped up. But what we're going to be talking about tonight is actually the other slip up in that league in the penultimate match day, which was Crystanbul, as it's been coined, where Liverpool went into the game with 3-0 halftime lead, and they ended up drawing the game 3-3, and ultimately would hand the initiative back to Manchester City, and they would win it on the final day. So,
Dwight Gale.
Indeed, well, and Damien Delaney, let's be fair, but you don't hear about
And this is one of those rare moments where I can actually say that I walked up to Dwight Gale and I gave him loads because I was on the same pitch as him after the women's team won the league. And I caught him by the side. I said, "See you. I'm a Liverpool fan. Why'd you do that? Why'd you do that?" He just started laughing. I was like, "Why'd you do that? There's no need for that. You know, no need to kill our dreams." I mean, I was obviously being funny about it, but yeah, I actually had a good chat with him about that.
That's cool.
Last summer.
Yeah.
Fucking top guy. Honestly, couldn't get any nicer. But yeah, it was just really funny. Just really funny. Like, why'd you do that? Just kill our dreams like that.
Like, why'd you do dirt like that, man? You know. Okay then. So right here in front of you on screen is the Liverpool team from the 2013-14 season. So as per this game, you need to try and figure out the starting 11 that ended up capitulating in Selhurst Park. So seeing that we have two players this time, we actually do it traditionally as opposed to the one player version. So who wants to take the first step?
I'll start this time because the last time I made one mistake.
Yes.
And I didn't get to pick, I think, the next 10.
Correct.
So I'm going to just try with this one first.
Okay.
So we'll start with Pepe Reina because I feel like that's no, hold on. Mingle is in that team.
Careful now.
We're already struggling with the goalkeepers here.
Yeah. Already struggling with the goalkeepers. Okay. Right.
Yep.
What's your safest bet, Aaron? What's your safest bet?
We'll go with Gerrard. I feel like that's the safest bet in that team.
And you would be correct. Gerrard did start that game. Okay, Dave, it passes to you.
Simon Mignolet.
Mignolet was the goalkeeper that started that game, so you avoided the little heffalump trap there, Aaron.
Did Sterling start?
He did. He did indeed. He actually started as the number 10 in that game, would you believe? Okay, go back to Dave.
Suarez.
Luis Suarez, yes, absolutely. Did start and scored in that game.
Did he always score? Was that? No, that was Norwich. That was kind of random.
Norwich is the one that he actively...
That was the 4 goals.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll go with Daniel Agger. I feel like he would have been a comfortable starter in that team at that point.
Daniel Agger did not feature in this match. So you were out, Aaron.
Sake.
You're out on the third level. So Dave, to win winning 11, who have you got? The anticipation is pulse pounding here.
It's Barini. He plays with Salford. It's random.
So
Hendo.
Jordan Henderson did not feature in this game. Aaron, you're back in it.
I was going to pick Henderson earlier, And it was only for the fact that Gerrard started. I was like, I don't think he had a place in that team like fully yet.
Not yet. No, he was a squad player at the time. So Aaron, you're back in it.
Glenn Johnson.
Glenn Johnson did play in this game at right back. All right, Dave, you're up again.
Right. Could lose this.
Good.
Sturridge. SAS. Or S, yeah.
Daniel Sturridge started the game. You're
Thank
still
you.
in it. It's 3 apiece.
I'm going to go with the Welsh Xavi and Joe Allen. Is he the Welsh Xavi?
He is the Welsh Xavi. And the Welsh Xavi scored in that game. So Joe Allen did start. So good shout there, Aaron. All right, Dave, back to you.
Mamadou Sakho.
Mamadou Sakho started the game in defence.
Right.
Skirtle? Did he? I feel like Skirtle would have started in that.
Skirtle was his partner in crime, yes.
Yeah.
He was indeed. Let me get this a little bit of a jig up here.
Right. Oh, okay. I'm going Brendan Rodgers here. I'm going to go with Lucas Leiva.
Lucas Leiva.
That was going to be my next pick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. This is getting tasty now. So, it's now to decide who played at left back. Now, again, you can stay in the game. This is the fun bit now, right? We haven't had the scenario yet. If you reckon you don't know who played at left back, you can try and guess one of the substitutes to stay in the game and give Dave the initiative. This is Russian roulette style.
No, I'm going to go with Jose Enrique. I feel like he started in that game.
I have a feeling John Flanagan started, but you go Jose Enrique.
It was one of the other.
Okay.
I'm going to go with Jose Enrique, yeah.
All right, then. Hang on. All right. So, Dave, you've gone for John Flanagan.
I've gone for the Muppet-looking one, yeah.
Yeah. And Aaron, you've gone with Jose Enrique as a left back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One of you's right. And it's not Jose Enrique. John Flanagan started that game at left back.
I'll never forget his open mouth for 90 minutes.
He wasn't the looker, unfortunately. He really wasn't.
No, he was prime council estate, like.
Yeah, and not a
it's what happens when you marry cousins. It's the product of cousin incest.
He actually went downhill after that. He couldn't even make it at Rangers after that. Liverpool was
he had a conviction to his name
injury
as well, which did not help, unfortunately. So good riddance.
He had a what?
He had a conviction to his name for domestic abuse.
Oh yeah, well that doesn't help.
So the Liverpool sold him off the back of that. So.
Oh, I just figured out what my cod's going to be. Oh, perfect.
John Flanagan.
No,
he's got save it for later, Aaron. Write it down.
It's horrible. He heard the term domestic abuse and immediately went, I've got a cod.
I feel like
which abuser is going to be on Aaron's domestic abusers list every week?
Yes. For completion's sake, there was only 2 subs in the game from Riders, and it was Philip Coutinho and Victor Moses.
I keep forgetting Moses played for Liverpool. I always remember him at Chelsea. I never remember him at Liverpool.
Yeah, well, to be fair,
he had that
best loan signings in the league, to be fair.
He was mental at Chelsea.
Yeah.
Conte just going, you play him at wing back, you win a Premier League, and by fuck it worked.
It really did. Okay then, so well done, Dave. You win winning 11 for this week. Good job.
I am 2 for 2.
You are indeed. So, right then, so let's move on then to the second half of our show. So, turning back now to the Premier League, we are very much in the last straight of it. We are down to 6 games ultimately, and it shows you how much can happen in 2 weeks, because obviously we run this podcast every 2 weeks, or at least we certainly try to. Obviously, we had a bit of a different agenda last week. We were talking about the international break and everything in between, but ultimately now we're back focusing on the Premier League.
Don't remind us. Don't remind us.
Oh, don't worry. We know. We're well aware. We're all still hurting. But
we're Liverpool fans. We don't care anymore anyway.
Yeah, life is actually meaningless to us now. But with in all seriousness, now we are talking about the run in for the Premier League title. There's obviously a few major stories coming into the last 6 games, and funny enough, the two big stories very much involve North London.
Yeah,
Tottenham are 2 points in the drop zone, looking like they're in serious trouble now, especially depending on what happens with Leeds United, which will have happened by the time this comes out. Leeds could very well have got themselves out of trouble with a 5 point advantage, or maybe not. But
yeah,
certainly that might have played out a little bit differently by the time we speak again. But for the second half of our show, we're talking about Arsenal, and certainly not necessarily about Arsenal themselves, or certainly the idea of the slip up, the concept of it, in a sense,
yeah.
because what's really happened in the last couple of weeks with Arsenal has been nothing short of a disaster on the pitch anyway. Because in the space of 3 weeks, they've lost the Carabao Cup final to Manchester City,
Yep.
and then we had the knockout then of them from the FA Cup by Southampton,
Yep.
which is certainly a bit of a hammer blow in that respect. They've
And
cut
then
they got a 1-0 win against Sporting, but again, one would expect that they probably should beat them in Europe. And
and
then
then
now they
Bournemouth.
had this pretty bad loss then to Bournemouth in the league. So that's three pretty bad losses in four for Arsenal, and two
Yep.
of them very much like ensuring that they don't get silverware this year.
Yeah, and
With the
next week is like the next week is the actual league. The pinnacle of the season is next
It
week.
is. Now, I believe, as this is what I have to double check now, but I believe they will have. I think I'm trying to check where City have their game in hand. I believe it's like later on in the season, but
It's Burnley on the 22nd of April. Burnley away.
yeah. So one would expect them to win that match, but again, stranger things have happened in this sense. But it is kind of culminating to a pretty significant showdown next weekend. With obviously, assuming the Manchester City do win their game in hand, and it's probably best that we don't assume anything. But if they do, then they will be on joint points, and the goal difference is very similar. Um, and as I said, like Arsenal, to their credit, have scored plenty of goals in the league this season, contrary to popular belief. But Manchester City are now really starting to hit a rich vein of form. Had a very good January in recruitment. All those players are now very much leading this team to potentially domestic treble, which is incredible to say, considering that they looked pretty lost at
They
Christmas.
they did look pretty lost at Christmas, and I didn't even comp that they might have gotten into the domestic treble until
Yeah.
I seen a TikTok today,
Yeah.
and I was like,
Well,
if it happens,
well, especially
If
considering
I if,
that like a lot of the big contenders are out of the cup now as well, so it is literally just
Mhm.
them and possibly Chelsea. But
Yeah.
again,
yeah, I
they
mean,
lost the
you know,
final to Palace last season, so
if you're Arsenal, you're shitting yourself, and there's many reasons for it. One, they're typical
if
in
you're
capitulating.
a certain Arsenal fan in our group,
If you
you're
are a
shitting
certain
yourself.
hairless, if you're a certain hairless gunner, you'll know exactly what we're talking about because Manchester City comfortably beat Chelsea today, 3 goals to nil. Arsenal couldn't beat Bournemouth
yeah, at home, which I think is
at
the worst thing.
home,
Yeah. So
right?
so let's talk about then. So what do you think is the biggest kind of factors about this? Why is it that Arsenal are having a kind of a and we're like I'm gonna try and put an amnesty on the word bottle jobs, right? Because I want to actually and the reason I say that is because like that's an easy answer, right? Everyone
No,
could
I
just kind of
think
be banterous and talk about like bottle jobs. But for me, it's in there's three different reasons why this is happening. But I'd like to hear what you guys think first of all. We might kind of like workshop it
I'll
there.
I'll jump in first here, right?
Yeah, go
I'll
for it.
jump in first because I've not got many, maybe one or two. I think the biggest problem with Arsenal here is um, they put themselves in a state of fear now, where they're afraid to actually push themselves forward. They're afraid to go for the jugular against teams like Bournemouth, because as I put in the chat earlier on, the second highest amount of touches of any Arsenal player in the game against Bournemouth was David fucking Raya. Your goalkeeper should not be the most touches in a game, bar one other player. You know, there was situations where it was being passed between the centre half and David Raya 2 or 3 times during that game, and I just feel there was an absolute hesitance, just a fear about Arsenal. It's not even to do with bottling the league. They've gone to a point now where they've gone. We're doing so well, so afraid to lose that momentum, so afraid to lose the league that they may actually just lose it. They put themselves in a state of fear now, I think.
I
Okay.
think I said it the last time. Um, they have no winners in their team.
No,
Past
no,
winners in their team.
No,
And
they
if
don't.
they had a
Well, they
Casemiro,
do. Gabriel Jesus.
Yeah, Jesus and yeah, would have been
You
yeah,
know, I mean,
but yeah, certainly Jesus would be the
you know,
but
but I
he's
mean,
one
like,
average Europe Champions League winner as well. So there are a few
well,
players there, but
I mean in the sense of they weren't
integral
key to
to it is
their
what you mean.
wins. Yes.
Okay.
Whereas if they had, as I said the last time, because it's the first name I can get with Premier League experience in my head, they
Yeah.
had a Casemiro on their team.
Casemiro's legs gone. He's shy. Shut up.
No. But, no, do you know what? It's not even how good he is in the pitch. If you had a leader like that in the dressing room, a serial winner in that dressing room, that could just keep their heads
If I was Arteta,
focused.
I'd be putting Thierry Henry in that dressing room if I was Arteta.
Put literally anyone in that room to get their fucking shit together.
I 100% agree with you.
Because that's where they're losing. Because they don't know what it's like to win it. They don't know what it's like to win a league.
They don't know how to win it.
They don't have the mentality to do it.
No.
They have the players to do it, obviously.
Yeah.
But they don't have the mentality to do it. And when the most recent winner with an English team in that team is Declan Rice winning the Conference League with West Ham.
Doesn't matter. You still won a European trophy.
Yeah.
Like at some point, no, but I mean like that's if that's your key winner in the team. Like when Pep was at City first, he probably didn't have a lot of league winners in his team, but he had won so much, it helps. When you don't have a manager that does it, you need the players.
He was the winner. He was the winner.
He was the winner. Yeah.
And do you know what's absolutely totally ironic about that is Arteta won most of that with Guardiola. It beggars belief. You know, he is a winner. He's in that dressing room, and yet he can't like.
People take the piss out of Chelsea and Rossinier for the way he talks about football, and you know, you'd respect the ball and all this shit. Arteta's just as gimpy. He's just as thick. But no one but
just as gimpy. That's going on my LinkedIn.
It's mad that Arteta is just as bad. We all saw the video that came out of their training the other day. What the fuck was that? I was like, that's like when the ball goes in the corner in a 5-a-side when you're 10 years old and everyone tries to kick it out of the corner.
I had a similar situation during my first season at City with Gary Naismith when it was that training session. And, you know, bless him, Gary, he's doing wonders at Stennismuir at the moment. They're top of League One, potentially in the Championship next season. His training sessions were him, you know, the majority of his training sessions were him talking at players. Like they weren't even moving. They were standing in the freezing cold in the training pitch and he's trying to drill it into their heads vocally instead of actually telling them to go and do what I'm telling you to do. And 3/4 of the training session, they weren't even fucking moving. I thought, no wonder you're losing games the weekend. They're not training. You know, you're just talking at them.
Yeah.
But like LinkedIn Liam there, like it's just there's only so much philosophical look you can put to a team.
Yeah, like I mean, it's getting to the point where I don't want them to lose it. I think we can all agree here. We don't want City to win the league.
Inherently, it is a good thing for the league for Arsenal to win it.
Yeah, it is. But at the same time, they're not doing themselves favors. They've spent the last 2 months thinking that their fans thinking they were going to win the quadruple. And never came up. Like this is the worst thing as well. Can you imagine if Ferguson or we say prime Premier League, Wenger or Ferguson or Jose Mourinho, well, maybe not Jose Mourinho, he probably would have fed into it to be fair. But the rest of all these like
Ferguson was very good at downplaying it. That was his great skill.
Yeah.
It was just making it.
He should have came out and he should have downplayed it. He should have went, you're putting pressure on my players. We can't achieve this. So then when you do get knocked out of a cup and you lose a cup final and you kind of scrape a win against Sporting Lisbon and you lose against Bournemouth, I was joking when I said it when they lost, they got knocked out of the cup. That can completely capitulate the entire season. And we could be looking at May where Arsenal win nothing again and City win a domestic treble when they've been not even remotely as good as they could have been the last
and it could be
years.
Pep's last season as well.
Yeah,
it could be Pep's last season as well.
That's the other factors of it as well, is the fact that like I do think the Carabao Cup final has been a massive factor to it. And again, I think everyone was kind of saying the same thing as well. It's just like it's rare in a sense where you see the two league like rivals duking it out in the cup final. But normally when it does happen, whoever wins that league cup ends up winning the league solely because of the psychological effect of it. And to a certain degree, I do kind of understand in a sense that like some of the kind of creative players have not been fit like fully fit this season. Like they haven't really been able to play Odegaard. Saka is absolutely wore out, and he's having probably one of his worst seasons in return. And thankfully, they have the squad depth, so I don't think that's as much of a mitigate. That's kind of mitigated some of the problems for them as well. Like again, it wasn't like last season where they only had one viable right winger. Now they have Madueke out there. Trossard can play right if he wants to, and now you got Max Downman as well if you need it. But again, it's much like Liverpool. If you're relying on a 16-year-old child to score your winning goals, there's something wrong with the rest of your team. There's an issue there that you're not solving. So for me, perhaps, and again, Aaron, you might have one to chip in here as well because you mentioned about the cup final. The biggest problem for me when I'm watching when with Arsenal matches for me is their approach to how they play the games. Because again, one of the biggest themes for me watching the Premier League this season is that the the quality of football has been very, very bad. It's been a lot of it has been about set pieces, it's been about throw-ins, it's been about slowing the game down and minimizing the amount of football you play in a match. And what's very evident when you go and watch Champions League football and you look at how the English teams have done in Europe, Arsenal are by no means the kind of source of all this, in a sense. It has been something that the English teams have kind of like just developed themselves because the Premier League is so competitive and they don't want to lose that much of a competitive edge. But you look at the continental teams and they're putting the afterburners on. They are going full energy, high press. They are using their width, their pace. They are making forward runs and taking risks. And that's the biggest word for me is risks. You look at PSG, they absolutely dominate Liverpool off the pitch. And again, by the time this comes out, we're going to be having our second legs in Anfield soon. I don't give them a fucking rat's chance in that match. I think PSG will probably beat Liverpool at Anfield anyway. And realistically, I don't see Arsenal winning the Champions League if they're playing that type of football because Bayern Munich have been a better team, so have PSG. So that to me is the final, personally. Like whoever wins that match, whoever wins that semi-final between those two is winning the Champions League, in my opinion. And it probably is going to be PSG because again, they've kicked at the right time and they're playing the best football.
They're finally getting over that hump that they had after that long summer or season last season, the short summer that they had.
Yeah, absolutely. Like and a lot of teams that played.
I did watch bits of that game, alright.
Yeah, and a lot of teams that played in the Trump World Cup, they were they were going through the same problem as well. So like Real took a few months to get their shit together. Again, it took dismissal from Xabi Alonso. Maybe just Arbeloa just playing the football that the players want to play. If it works, it works. You know, Real Madrid are one of those weird mercurial.
I mean, that's apparently what Ancelotti did.
Yeah,
he just went. You're good enough to just play football.
Yeah,
so just play football.
It's flat.
This is the setup that I have. But yeah, it's just give them out. But like,
yeah,
that cup final to go back to Arsenal. That cup final reminds me of the last time Arsenal and City played in a Carabao Cup final.
And again, it was
Pep's first season, I think, or second season, and it was one of Wenger's last seasons.
Yeah,
it was a similar result, but that was clearly the changing of the guard. It was like it's new football. Yes. Everything, the past is gone. We're in a new. This is how we play football now, and this should have been that for Arsenal. It should have been their moment to go. We're fucking in charge. This is our season, and they didn't do it. And that psychological effect will affect a team like that. There's no excuse why they shouldn't win the league from the position that they're in before the Bournemouth game. Now, after the Bournemouth game, I don't see them beating City the next time. And if City win their game in hand, they're in second. Am I wrong? They are, aren't they?
No, they'll be on joint points. They'll be on the same.
They'll be on joint points.
It'll go down to goal difference if they were to win all the games after that. If that was a scenario you said where City win their game and then they win the game in hand, then it goes down to goal difference and it'll be literally on a game-to-game basis. I still think Arsenal's running is better statistically than Man City, but again, when you have the form and momentum, it doesn't really matter, you know. But I agree with you in a sense.
Arteta needs to.
Arteta
needs to get these players in the room now as soon as possible, and just go and just tell them every single game in the league from here on in, we're going balls to the wall because we're better than every team in the league, and we should be beating every single team in the league.
Yeah,
and if they don't do it. And if, as Dave said, because I didn't watch much of the Bournemouth game, I think I was a little bit hungover, possibly. But with the way my brother was talking about it and all of my friends were talking about it, it did just seem like that. It was like, this is not a title winning team. You couldn't imagine, like, it just seemed like there was nothing there with them. They didn't look like that they were in the running to win the league. And I jokingly, I said with some of my other mates that I was out with the other night, that he said, no, Arsenal aren't going to bottom the league. And I'm just like, they can. They're fucking capable of doing it. Because if they drop more points that isn't City before the end of the season, they're fucked.
Yeah.
They're
But yeah, I go back to the last time that Arsenal were in this position, which was 2 seasons ago. And again, it was a similar situation where like they had a little bit of an ascendancy, they had opportunity to dismantle, to dethrone Manchester City, and all they had to do was win the game that they had against them. That was it. It would have been the deciding factor. But I remember watching that game and I was in disbelief at how defensive Arsenal were at the Emirates as well. Like, this is the game where you absolutely have to win this. Again, the best example of this is in the League of Ireland, where like you go up against your title rivals on a fairly regular basis. You have to win those games. You just have to. Bows have to beat Rovers in order to challenge them in the league. Likewise with Pats. You have to put points on the board. But it's not just that. You're taking points away from them. Like, that's where the 6-pointer phrase comes from. It's 3 points for you and 3 points away from them.
Yeah.
That concept doesn't seem to resonate with Arteta. It seems to be a case where like he's almost dependent on getting by enough with his own team and just hoping that kind of like the league will almost do the work for him. And again, up to a certain point this season, that was actually working. Like, I think from like, say, before, like, I'd say February, let's say, right, that he was in that kind of ascendancy. Again, it's not the biggest title advantage like anyone's had. Like, you know, like 9 points. I think Liverpool lost it from there a couple of years ago as well. For similar story, they got like really overcommitted on multiple fronts, lost a couple of games in a row, lost their mojo, and then City just hit the afterburners. And it's the same thing's happening this season. But what's very evident for me from watching both Arsenal games and both Manchester City games is that their philosophy in how to play the game has totally shifted. Arsenal slow the game down. They take X amount of time to take a throw in, X amount of time to take the corners, and that's their strategy to try and basically win the game by kind of attrition essentially. But they've been doing that since November. You know, like this is stuff that you only do when you're in the last leg of your season. You don't like start eking out results over Christmas. Christmas is where you fucking win the league. You like give everyone a hiding around like around St. Stephen's Day to New Year's and into the January transfer window. You know, that is where you win the league. That's where Liverpool won the league last season. Was literally getting that insane run of form from October to January and fucking coasting in second gear after that because no one else was good enough to challenge them. Now, again, that wasn't really the right approach from Slot, but as we've learned this season, he doesn't have very good, like, just generally good approaches anyway. But City's approach was do the exact opposite to what Arteta is doing, and that's so evident with the way they play now. Getting Semenyo in, being a penetrating inside forward that just cuts through the line. You've got Cherky now, who's now their actual proper playmaker, where a player like Cherky would have been vilified, Grealish style. You know,
he's settled in so well, hasn't he?
But that's the thing. Yeah. But this is how people always misinterpret like Guardiola tactics, because a lot of it goes back to tiki taka. It goes back to death by football and all these different things.
Yeah.
City don't play that way anymore. It's direct. It's incisive. It's with pace. The less passes, the better now for Man City, because, as I said, Cherky takes a couple of touches and goes. Bernardo's been released from whatever fucking midfield hell he's been granted the last couple of years. So now he's able to play the football that he's been made to play. And Semenyo has been a revelation. There's genuinely an argument for me that Semenyo should be the player of the year. But personally, I think it's going to be Bruno. But at the very least, it probably will be Bruno. But the thing about it is that look at the other players that have stepped up. Nico O'Reilly is a revelation. But again,
he's been great, hasn't he? Like, just you love seeing a young lad coming up and like.
But again, he was like Nico Lewis was that a couple of years ago. Like literally the exact same player, like fullback slotting into a midfield, being late in the box and scoring a few goals. Now, Nico O'Reilly has scored more goals than Rico Lewis ever has, but Lewis was a better kind of like positional player in a sense where Lewis would slot into the midfield so that De Bruyne was raced, whereas Nico O'Reilly is like, fuck it, I want that ball. You know, he'll come forward in a sense, and he'll be the last person in the box. The goal that he scored in the cup final, the Carabao Cup final, is the exact same goal he scored against Chelsea today. It's the exact same play, exact same move, and both teams fell for it. So the fact that like they're being able to find solutions by just playing, as Jurgen Klopp said, play some fucking football. I think that's going to be the difference. Is that like Arsenal are so stuck in the way they're going to play now, like they can't open up. They're not able to. Um, and yeah, sure, like they don't. I don't think they even have the right kind of players to do that now as well, because they've no Odegaard, and they've no Eze, and Saka is clearly hampering an injury and needs a few months rest, which he's not going to get now because I mean the World Cup's
I said it 2 seasons ago. When I play that young fella, he's going to be done by the time he's 25, 26.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
He's
yeah.
gonna be
That's why they have to be
finished.
so careful with Dowman, because it's that same thing where like you can't just keep throwing your hopes on him. Again, we're the same with Engel.
Like that's where I
just
kind
can't
of
do that.
that's why I kind of to just shift it a little bit, but to keep kind of on topic.
Yeah.
That's why I kind of agreed what I think what Amarim was doing with Manu. I think he just didn't want to play him too much, to put too much pressure on him. No, it could have been other things as well.
I think
But
that was
I
more of
think
a tactical thing from Amarin, but
yeah, because if you play them when they're too young, too much weight's going to go on their shoulders, and either A, they're going to flourish with it, or B, it's going to kill them either physically or mentally.
Well, put it this way to you, right? If I was an Arsenal fan, I'd be really interrogating Arteta as to why Lewis Skelly is not starting. I genuinely believe that is
Who apparently wants out.
yeah.
And apparently United are sniffing around him.
Well, I think that's the biggest. That is the
insane.
biggest miscalculation that Arsenal have had this season, is that to be so paranoid in their defensive structure that they're not allowing a genuinely good technical footballer like Lewis Skelly to do his job.
Well, like,
Because
could
Lewis
you
Skelly
imagine if
is doing what Nico Riley's doing at Man City. He's stepping out of the back line and scoring goals.
yeah, like could you imagine if just from because of the clubs and the way they are, do you imagine if Arsenal lost a third youngster to United in 3 seasons?
That would be an absolute disaster.
It'd be fucking insane.
But at least with the likes of Aiden Heaven and stuff, they hadn't made the first team yet. Lewis Skelly was their best player last season.
Yeah,
And the fact that like he's gone from not only being like he's not even the fucking second choice left back. He's the third choice left back, the fourth choice left back. That is baffling.
it's kind of mad. All right, it's weird.
I genuinely I'm very frustrated with Arsenal because Arteta does not seem to have the like. Arteta's big problem for me is that he agonizes over such small detail when the bigger picture is the problem. Like he's.
Well,
you
that's the
hear all
problem
these
when you make the move from assistant manager to manager. The assistant manager's job is to worry about those small things. When you make that transition into a manager, you're supposed to leave.
Fine.
I don't know if
That's fine in your first.
Yeah.
But that's fine in your first 2 seasons. If we're going to go.
He clearly can't let it go.
7 seasons in.
Mm.
Man, to think that, isn't it? 7 fucking seasons in.
Yeah. But
He's
bear in
7
mind,
seasons in,
like,
and I understand not winning trophies the first time around. I don't count the FA Cup. The FA Cup doesn't count. I won his team. I was Emery's team. He spent €1 billion, and he's won fucking nothing.
Here's the thing with it.
He might come
there's
third
nothing
for
wrong with the
3rd
squad.
seasons in a row.
The squad is the most in-depth squad in the league. Like there's 2 solid international players per position. There's probably 1 too many left backs. There's 1 too many centre backs. There's 1 too many defensive midfielders. But beyond that, it's a perfectly solid squad. You could probably do a little churn in next season or the season after, phase out the likes of Norgard and Trossard just based off their age more than anything else, and you've got another league-winning team there. But the issue that they have is their approach to football. I think I believe that's what it is. Like you hear all these kind of stories about like Arteta focusing on stuff like the steering wheel on the bus. They're whatever, like kind of little micromanaging stuff. The having fucking Salt Bay visit the camp and like pickpockets to keep their players away, like alert. That is like those are stuff that we would have slagged off Brendan Rodgers for years and years ago. So we should be very consistent with that. Arteta is clearly a good football coach, but he is prioritizing the wrong things. What he needs to what he needs to do is to get his lads to play football. Just actually open up and attack, because ultimately they have a big game now against Manchester City. If they lose that, I think they will lose the league, because you're now relying on Man City dropping points.
That'll be the death now. If they lose against City, that's it. They're done. Mentally,
don't get me wrong. Between myself and Aaron, we'll have an absolute field day beyond.
Oh, I can't wait.
I mean, Christmas come early if that happens, as far as we're concerned.
But
I
again,
don't think
it
Neil.
says
I
so
don't
much
think
that
Neil
like,
will show up to a social event for 6 months.
but does it says so much about like about Arsenal is that ultimately the team is starting to fall apart because Mikel Merino is out, and Mikel Merino should not be. And I said this last season as well,
Yeah.
and I think I'm fully justified in that. Mikel Merino should not be your striker. You have strikers at the
No,
team.
he's not
Like,
a striker.
but this is what I'm saying is the fact like he's been used as that to suit a particularly
Yeah,
tedious style of football, and while that tedious style of football will get you there or thereabouts, I don't think it's going to win you the league because again, every stats package says the same thing. The team that plays the best style of football is often the league winner. Like whoever creates the most XG, whoever creates the most chances, whoever has the
yeah.
most possession normally wins the league. There's always the old tenet that like the best defense wins the league, but the reason that happens is because the winning team is often on the attack, so you don't get less. They have less chances against them. That's the quirk of the numbers. So it's the same with
And
Liverpool last
Arsenal,
season.
I think as well, if we're going to
I'll
go with
be
that,
back in a
if we're going to
moment.
go
I'll
with
be.
that,
Yeah,
yeah. If you're going to go with that, Arsenal do have the best defense in the league.
they have a
I
phenomenal
think
defense. That's part of the problem.
pound
It's
for
too good.
pound, it's so fucking good that there was even some Arsenal fans saying that it break Chelsea's 15 goal in one season record. That was never going to happen.
No,
But nobody was pushing back at it too hard. It's just like I don't think you realize how insane that record was. It was just like they have the players for Saliba and Gabriella.
yeah,
Saliba's brilliant, but you you're right. They've got all the talent up in the front, but none of it's clicking, none of it's working. Your star player, who should be, I would say, the Fernandez of the team in terms of being the linchpin up, not the linchpin, but
yeah.
like the main
I see what
man
you mean, though.
up on the top. It wouldn't be. It should be Saka. It's not
Mm.
because he can't seem to get his shit together, be that mentally or physically or whatever.
I think he's more physical than anything else because, like I said, he's played like an ungodly
Yeah,
amount of football for his age.
he's played an ungodly amount of football. The moment he broke into that team, it was like, oh, he's there now. That's the end of that one.
Yeah.
We'll never have to worry about that position
But again,
again.
much to that point, he was an absolute revelation. Like he has earned his spot. He has earned his tenure in the team. But again, it's that sort of thing where like you see with certain players, and it happens a lot in the Liverpool team, weird enough, where they have this kind of completely off season and then they'll go away for 3 months and they'll come back a new player. Like we had this kind of weird, like kind of inverse proportion with like between Salah and Mane. Mane will have an incredible season and score great loads of goals, and Salah will be kind of dormant, and then they just switch. So then Mane would have a terrible season and Salah would score 30. And it's that sort of like in a weird way, like no one's really can really replace the output of Saka when it comes to creativity and runs and stuff like that. So again, whether like and again, injuries have always been a problem with Arsenal as well, and like whatever approaches they change in training or in the way they play is not impacting on that. They're still getting key players injured at the worst times. So is it the training? Is it the stuff like that? Like it could be something absolutely mental, like with Spurs, where they think it's the retractable pitch. Like you would have your tinfoil hat on after a certain point. But again, it goes back to my argument is that like if you have the squad depth that Arsenal have, I really don't think you should be that worried when Mikel Merino is out for a few months or anything along those lines. Because again, we have that with City as well. City's like the one player that could never get injured for City was probably Kevin De Bruyne, and De Bruyne
Yeah,
got injured all the time. But what happened was Bernardo would step up. The create like
yeah.
Gundogan would score a regular load of goals, or it would come from other parts of the team. That's the thing. You engineer redundancies into your squad, so then when you do eventually do have a key player out injured, you have a backup. They have the backups now in most positions. Now you have to go, okay, what are we missing now? And it has to be the style. It has to be the tactics. Do Arsenal really need to play a back five most games nowadays? Could they possibly like push up those two wide back, or like even play different players at wing back? Do what Conte used to do, and risk someone like Madueke as wing back and Trossard on the left or Martinelli. Just put them in different parts of the pitch and just like do mid blocks instead of low blocks. And maybe play the don't like take 10 seconds to play a throw. Play the throw fast and catch teams in transition. That to me is a big
Yeah.
problem. Is that they've no transitional play at all. Like
They're
it's
just no. Look. I hope they work it out. I do, but I'm very fearful.
yeah.
And if it doesn't work out, they have to absolutely sack Arteta. That's it. It's 7 seasons. It's been €1 billion. Very grateful for the fact that you dragged us out of the trenches where they were at one point. But you're at that point now where it's just like, at the end of the day, we need physical silverware. And United have done it in the midst of their disastrous last decade. We say Spurs have managed to pull one off. Who else has won? I think Leicester managed to, we say from the Leicester won the league and then they won the FA Cup and they won the Community Shield. Palace have ended up winning the FA Cup. The other teams are winning trophies. You should be doing it now. There's really no excuse. So if they don't win the Premier League or they don't win the Champions League, he's got to go.
Yeah.
That's it. And you bring in somebody else who can get more out of these teams. And if I was Arsenal and I was looking for a new manager, I'd be mad, but I think it might just be mad enough to work. I think you'd probably ask Conte to see would he leave Napoli.
You see, this is the thing. I think Arsenal, like, I wouldn't press a nuclear button on Arteta like this on the season. But again, you do have to genuinely ask questions as to what went wrong this season. Again, like a lot of, with a few other seasons that we've had where Arsenal have finished second, there's been some level of mitigating circumstances. Like we were talking about in the first half as well with certain teams. Like you run out of excuses after a while, you know. If I was using Derry as an example, it's felt like, okay, well, yeah, you got everything you need now this season. You need to push. You need to attack now. And I think it's a similar scenario here where, like, Arsenal correctly didn't have the squad depth the last couple of years. They were solely reliant on Odegaard and Saka for creativity. They didn't have the forwards required because Jesus and Havertz have such terrible injury records. So you've had to rely on just playing a big lump up front. That is, again, that's sort of stuff that we would have been slagging off the likes of Sam Allardyce or Tony Pulis for doing. So we have to be fair in saying that, you know, you can't. That sort of stuff is not going to win you a league. It'll get you second, third, and fourth, but it's not going to win you the league. So it's the same thing. It's the same difference here. Again, with Arsenal, Arsenal almost seems like they have to benefit from other teams like failing in a sense, because they obviously benefited from like I say in the last couple of years. I'm saying like United's drop off generally, so they're no longer a factor really in any league title race now. Likewise,
that 3 weeks there was great.
Yeah, but even that, but again, that's the point. Again, this is where I'm talking. This is the next kind of point now. Is fact like Chelsea are no longer the force that they were because they've become a basically a marketplace for 24-year-old footballers, and just 24 because that's the median age, that's the meta age, and if you're 25, you get shot in the back of the head or sent to Strasbourg, whichever one goes first. So Chelsea are no longer a factor. Aston Villa don't have the financial ceiling yet to become a championship contender yet, but that time will come. Same with Newcastle; they're a sleeping giant. It just requires them to challenge for it as well.
No, they're not. They're sleeping. But they have never been a giant. They never will be a giant. They're just asleep.
But in terms of scale, Newcastle can scale up, is my argument. Spurs, obviously, what's going on there. So ultimately, the Red Sea is parted here for Arsenal. They literally only have to worry about Manchester City in this season because there's no Liverpool, there's no Chelsea, no United, no Spurs. They couldn't possibly screw this up. They only have to beat one team in the league ultimately over a season. And then you look at especially the performances this season, because Arsenal's great trait in the last couple of years was being able to beat top 6 teams. They were able to beat City. They were able to beat United and Liverpool, or at the very least draw. They can win North London derbies. They can beat Chelsea on a regular basis. But this season in particular, losses against Liverpool, losses against United, draws against City. And if that result is anything but a win on Sunday, it's going to be the same thing. And again, I can't see it just not being a tactical a choice. It's a choice of how they play. And they really just need to just run. They need to move. They need to attack, you know? Because the league is not going to fall into their lap, I don't think, this season. You know, because you see how the way City are playing now. Like, City will rest players against Southampton in the cup semi-final. So City now know they only have 8 games left. Because they're probably going to make the final of the FA Cup. I hope I'm wrong, but they're probably going to make the FA Cup final.
You'd hope you're wrong.
Yeah, I hope I'm wrong. And I hope, and again, I figure Leeds will probably beat Chelsea in the other semi-final. So it could be that Leeds are going to do the most possible, maximum austerity football possible to try and win the cup final against City. But
No,
we'll see.
I never. Which City have a history of fucking it against smaller teams in the cup final?
Yes, United especially.
Yeah. So Leeds would be a fun one to win the FA Cup.
Yeah.
I don't want them to because I do have a mate who's a Leeds fan, two mates who are Leeds fans, and I'd rather not them have any happiness in their life.
Yeah, you wouldn't hear the end of it otherwise. Yeah, that's fair.
No,
that's fair.
wouldn't hear the end of it. But specifically, one of them, and Brandon won't listen to this, but the thought of you having some happiness over football makes me sick. but it is like seeing another team that's not in the top 6 in England win the FA Cup be great.
It's
really nice to
inherently a
watch.
good thing for English football.
Yeah.
Because as I said, like it's done wonders for Palace. And again, Palace absolutely demolished Fiorentina in the Conference League. They will probably now be the favourites to win it. And again, that's guaranteed Europa League football for them because they'll be prioritised over Lyon in whatever precincts they have.
Yeah.
They probably will get through anyway, regardless. But again, that's the pathway. That's the stuff that you can get if you win the FA Cup. They'll be the perfect poster child for that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But again, it's so like going back to our previous point though, like there is such a possibility for Arsenal to get this done. And again, there's going to be so much analysis now of run-ins and stuff like that. One other angle I'd probably throw in here as we wrap this up is, do you think that peer pressure has got to Arsenal to a certain degree? Like not inter-team pressure, I'm talking like outer-team pressure. Because there's always so much made about the noise, the fan noise around Arsenal, that kind of like that air of expectancy and demanding and stuff like this. You know, because again, it's a podcast for another day, but I think that the fan channel culture that Arsenal kind of like between Arsenal and United, I think is putting the biggest detriment to those two clubs over the last couple of years. Like, the things are probably not inherently that wrong at the clubs, but the fan culture makes it more amplified and makes it look worse.
It doesn't help because I do you know what, if AFTV didn't exist, I think people would be less interested in what their fans react. Out of all the fan channels. And I think in United's case it would be Mark Aldridge. But in Arsenal's case, having the likes of that team there, or sorry, that YouTube channel there is a detriment to them. And I wish these fan channels would fuck off. Some of them are fine. Some of them are fine. Other ones, not so much. And AFTV, I think, is a massive detriment to them. Because you know as well, a lot of their players are still online.
That's
maybe not chronically online.
Like we're now at that point where like these teams are now at the social media age, so they're hearing all this stuff when they probably shouldn't be. You know, like you can't keep them forever. Yeah,
you can't. And again, it probably wasn't a thing before 2010. You very rarely get them on. You very rarely get that much vitriol thrown at you online, and at that point, you probably wouldn't care.
Yeah.
So you had the likes of Rooney putting up those ridiculous tweets that he just never deleted. It's always fun when they pop back up. And then you go into the 2010s and you have these players on it, but again, it's like it's not real life, it's fine. And now it's like, no, it is. Twitter isn't that, you can't use that excuse as not real life anymore. It very much is. So I think it should be a case of somebody should get the phones off these players, be it their agents or the manager themselves, and go, delete all these apps off your phone or pass it on to somebody else.
Yeah.
And just make it a bog standard social media page where you just post the games, you post the results, and the odd update from any sort of fucking, thing that you've signed with Nike or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I said, like I think it's like like probably there's a few people listening to this thinking like, we're surely not blaming like fucking Robbie for Arsenal's problems, but I think it's the fact that like the fan culture is like the kind of snake that's eating its own tail to a certain degree, because I certainly felt as a Liverpool fan this year that the fan culture around it has been so toxic that like you don't know where the club is coming or going, in a sense. Like everyone's kind of so confused as to where they need to stick or twist with Slot, for example, when they need to stick or twist with certain players and all that jazz. So I can only imagine like every fan culture is the same. It's only when your team is actually in a very good state that like, you kind of shut the fuck up and just let it and let the good times roll. but the moment is like just some sort of minor inconvenience, then it kind of like, it's whatever small issue then becomes a mountain, um,
Mhm.
so that's why I think, like, I like, again, I don't think it's like the biggest factor of it. I still think it's like mostly footballing reasons that Arsenal are struggling, but certainly the fact that like there's just so much like discontent, the fact that like you are getting kind of like boos and jeers from the Arsenal crowd when they play it from the back and they slow the game down. It's like like the fans can see it. We're not, all of us aren't blind. You're holding yourself back. You can play better football. You know. Okay then. So with that then, let's wrap up this pod then with a round of cards.
Cristiano Ronaldo is a cod. I don't care what it goes. I mean, you can't do that.
And you seem exceedingly smug about the idea of people, kids particularly.
Your little. He's the guy who ran away and left his wife for a young one.
So, unfortunately, due to various different reasons, Dave had to leave us he just basically got sick of us, to be honest with you.
Which is fair. I'm a
Which is
very
fair.
annoying person.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. But I'll probably start off then with the CODs here. Well, actually, do you know what? We'll start off with Dave's COD because he left us with this one, which was Mikel Arteta. So that's kind of extended to the conversation we just had. To be fair, so I think that's a kind of a given, really, in terms of like what we were just talking about. So yeah, I'll start off with my COD then. So my COD goes back to our League of Ireland chat, and it goes back to, I suppose, the most like noteworthy signing of the January window for the League of Ireland, which was James McLean. So the whole story is that James McLean obviously was the Wrexham captain, and wasn't getting any younger. It has to be said. Like he is particularly old in the tooth when it comes to a footballer, and he always really had the kind of very romantic intention of retiring at Derry City because obviously he came through Derry City before he moved to Sunderland.
Yeah.
So he is a League of Ireland product in that sense. So it seemed like the right. I certainly like was taken a bit surprised that he moved this season. Like it kind of came out of the blue for.
I thought he would actually stay with Wrexham to see could he get them a promotion push and then leave.
Yeah, but again, I don't know whether there was like just too much noise coming from the Wrexham camp in a sense, because again, like the Wrexham have a lot of upward trajectory, and broadly speaking, like a 37-year-old like winger, even even if he's club captain, is they're people are going to see that as more of a hindrance when it comes to squad building and stuff like this. Especially if they do end up like they're probably not going to get playoffs this season, but if they're in contention the season after and stuff, they need to kind of like prep for they just need to get better players to replace McLean in that respect. So the other problem then they had was, okay, so he moves in, so he lets go of the Wrexham project. He moves home to Derry City, very sentimental, very kind of like very much like my retirement cruise in that sense. And then by total coincidence, his brother Patrick also signs for Derry City. So now you have both McLean brothers now back in Derry. And seemingly
where was he? Was he always a League of Ireland part? Because I didn't know
he was. Yeah, he was. He was playing a Sligo for the last few years. He's a centre back.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I think he was up. I think he was playing in the Northern Irish League before that. So yeah, no, he has been around that level anyway. So now we come to this season where Derry are not having a good time. It has to be said. And unfortunately, the McLean stuff has kind of been a central part of it to a certain degree. Mainly because like when McLean was starting games, he was starting as a number 8 in the midfield. Because again, one of like Derry's best player, Michael Duffy, plays in his position, and they'd already signed a left back for that situation. So McLean was going to play left back, and unfortunately, he doesn't have the legs to do that yet. Unfortunately, he could possibly play like if you've done the 3 players out wide, he could probably be the middleman and all that. But there was a decision to play him in the central midfield, make him the playmaker, kind of use his technical ability to do that. But basically, it seems like he kind of slows the game too much now. He's almost like too much on the ball, and he's trying to run from midfield. He's basically playing a winger style of football in the central midfield. But the problem with that is he overcommits, gets caught in possession, and Derry's midfield is totally unbalanced now. Especially because they also have like way too many number 10s, so McLean has to play behind them. That's just not going to work. So for footballing reasons, it hasn't worked out. And then just in the last couple of weeks, things are starting to look a little bit weird in the McLean camp, where he claims to have he says he's injured, so he can't make he can't make training, he can't make matches and stuff like that. He's not passing fit. And then same day on his social media, he's boxing. he's going boxing training.
I've seen this. Yeah. He kind of got caught out there, right?
A little bit caught out. Now again, it could be. I do believe it was literally just like unfortunate timing. It was like the day before, or whatever. But in any case, it didn't really do good for the optics, to say the least, to have him doing a different sport and presumably getting injured doing it. In that respect. But then again, like it's often the case with McLean. Like he has his opinions and he has his views, and he doesn't shirk away from them. So not 3 months after signing for the League of Ireland, he's already complaining that there is a distinct lack of facilities in the league. To which point, giant neon lights printing "No shit Sherlock" has been flashing all over James McLean's house, because you would fucking know this if you did the research. Derry City do not have their training ground; they are using someone else's. In the same way that Pats
they're using. Is it a team from the Northern Ireland League they use?
No, they used to do that. They used to train up in Belfast, but now they trained in Derry GAA.
Oh, yes, you said that already.
They have a huge complex. They have a lovely complex out there now, yeah. But again, that is the story with like the majority of the League of Ireland clubs. 2 teams train out in the AUL and Swords. Like Pats have to rent out Abbottstown for their training sessions. Shamrock Rovers is the only place that has their own actual training facility in Roadstone, and that's a luxury that they have based on their European success. So like, not every team has the facilities that they want, and so I think it's a little bit rich of James McLean to kind of like make himself the main draw of the league. Granted, he'd probably say he didn't intend it for it to be that way, and then start complaining about the situation. For me, it's very reminiscent of last season for Shamrock Rovers women, where Rusha Littlejohn signed on to be basically to replace Stephanie Zambra in the team. And again, she was on a professional contract. She was the best paid player in the league, I believe. And like got all the kind of like extra kind of like requirements and stuff that she wants to basically move to Ireland for the duration of her contract. Starts off the league with a rich vein of form. She's scoring goals from like fucking 50 yards and all this sort of stuff, just doing mad stuff. And then she pretty much fucks off like 3 months in. Because again, she basically left her entire life in London to basically like to have a go at this Rovers thing, and hoping that it would possibly help her international career as well. But again, it's the same thing where she just got really frustrated with the quality of the league and the facilities. It's just like the League of Ireland is a semi-professional for women, right? Like that can't have been news to you that this is the case. Like that would have been part of the package, So I just, it's strange that like maybe that's the whole kind of conversation, is to trying up the standard of the league and like trying to get these players that have walked the walk in the sense of international football and being in the English system for so long, that they're telling us what the requirements are of the league. Again, to which we say, we know what the standards are of the league, we just don't have the fucking money for it. And we're not getting any government grants because they'd rather give them the fucking horse racing or greyhound racing or fucking shooting
greyhound
foxes,
racing,
or whatever's wrong with the fucking cunts. So it's the same thing where like, we know what the issues are, there's nothing we can do about it, but thanks for coming anyway and giving out about it like everyone else has. Like, if you can shout louder than Damien Duff and Stephen Bradley, go nuts, we'll welcome it. So yeah, bit of a cod in that one. And unfortunately, I think he's going to be scapegoated a little bit for Derry's bad season. So we'll have to wait and see on that one.
I mean, when you're going to be the star man in the team and the biggest name in, I wouldn't say the biggest. Well, no, he probably is. Would he be the biggest name in the league?
100%.
Yeah, 100, yeah,
Well,
it's
most
going to
recent
happen.
big name anyway. Again, like there's former
Yeah.
Ireland players, and then again there's someone playing in the World Cup. Well, there's hopefully 3 World Cup bound players in the league this year. So
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. You'd say, well, he's certainly one of the biggest factors in it anyway. Yeah,
So like you have when you're the biggest player in the league and you play for a team from where you're from and they're not doing well and you were supposed to come in to push them on to win the league, you
Yeah.
are very much going to be ridiculed for not doing the thing that you were brought in to do.
yeah, exactly.
Even if
Yeah,
he is 38 years old, you know.
indeed. So yeah, that's my piece. Aaron, what about your cause? What have you got for us tonight?
Well, I already thought about it earlier because you were on about domestic abuse. Spurs bringing in De Zerbi and that going over like a lead balloon in amongst their fan base.
Yeah, yeah. It hasn't been
The
a popular
supporters
appointment.
club,
Yeah,
no, the supporters club are not happy. As of us recording now,
yeah.
they have not got that new manager bounce that they fucking desperately need. I don't think he's the man to do it either. I think whoever took on this was going to be a poison chalice.
Yeah.
They needed someone who knew the league probably better in this particular situation. And I know it would have been mental to say it, and I don't think they would have ever gone down this route. But needs must. They probably should have done an Allardyce. They probably should have begged Sean Dyche, maybe not begged, but gone to him and gone, look, if you stay up, you can get a 2-year deal. If you get relegated, sayonara. Sorry about that. Let's move on.
Yeah.
But they're not good. Anytime I've seen them play this season, it's like I'm not going to say what I'm going to say because that would get us kicked off. I would rather watch grass grow. I would rather watch a puppy get slapped than watch Spurs play, because with all the talent they have in that team, not a single player wants to play for them. They've all resigned themselves to the fact that we're getting relegated.
Yeah, yeah.
And West Ham have kicked on. Nottingham Forest are doing just enough to push themselves away. Leeds seem to be doing fine, even with the cup run. So it's switching what could be switching Spurs for, let's say, Millwall next season.
Yeah.
Is probably the most fun outcome of all of this. And as you said before, Spurs going down to the Championship could cause a catastrophic downfall for them if they don't get back up immediately.
Yeah, I mean, like, we were
You can
talking
survive
about Spurs
one.
a couple of pods
Like,
ago.
you
We
can
kind of said that as well. Like, it's the risk they run of like going for double relegation is very, very real.
Like, you can survive. I think they're fine financially with the players that they have. I think they're fine for one season in the Championship.
Yes, but they have to go back up immediately. Like,
they have to go back up immediately.
Yeah,
and if they don't, it's going to be disgraceful. And pointing someone like De Zerbi, who doesn't have the fans backing, who's a terrible human being all around. Fuck him. I hate him. Well, I don't hate him. That's.
Well, again, let's unpack that a little bit, right? Because so again, for anyone who's unfamiliar, Roberto De Zerbi was the Marseille team head coach, and it's been made public multiple times about the stuff that he was talking about. Basically, disregarding what happened to Mason Greenwood to all intents and purposes, and again, it's a lot of it is down to like people, if you believe that this is actually his kind of view, or is this more of a kind of a political thing to say, to be heard saying, in order for like the Marseille kind of structure to be happy with the signing and all this sort of stuff. Again, this is Greenwood was there before De Zerbi. It's not necessarily a case where De Zerbi recruited him specifically because of that. It's more of a case of like, listen, he's here. We're like, I'm going to play him. I see no reason why not to. Type words to that effect.
He could have been a lot more diplomatic about it, but he wasn't, and he kind of came out like he was defending him.
Yeah, I think that's part of the problem. And again, like you could argue with there's like a kind of language barrier kind of the degree to it and all that. But
that's probably it too. But
yeah,
I think Spurs fans have got to possibly reckon with the fact that someone's going to take Greenwood in the summer. And if they stay up and he's proven from his time at United, there's a scary prospect you have him in your team next year.
Yeah, well, again, that's also reckoning that
Yeah.
like they have to come with as well. Like again, it's that sort of thing where like I think it's very evident. It's very clear that like this has been like a pertinent problem for the Spurs fan base, because a lot of the kind of initial stuff that like Zerbi has been speaking about has not actually been about Spurs. It's been about Greenwood. It's been about like well stuff he said before, and it reminds me a little bit of our national team coach Helgrimson, because he had to deal with a Mason Greenwood situation himself, because as the Jamaica manager, the Jamaican FA has been making overtures to declare Greenwood, because obviously Greenwood has been capped for England once or twice, so they'd have to get like basically like FIFA dispensation or a tribunal or something like that to basically declare him now that he's kind of reached like a maximum amount of kind of caps, let's say. So he kept getting asked all these kind of questions, and again, Halgrimson's comments were not like they were open. Let's just say, he was saying, "Listen, like I'll like if he's available for selection, I'll pick him because he's a very good footballer," and all these different things. Again, much like the Derby situation, it sounds like a defense of the man as opposed to the footballer. The moment he's out of that Jamaican FA setup, one of the first questions he gets, like announced as the Ireland manager, is about Mason Greenwood, and he basically alludes to the fact like the Jamaican FA wants Greenwood. I don't particularly want Greenwood. Not comfortable with him, but I have had to publicly say I've had to publicly back the stance, because otherwise I won't get him. And with the country like Jamaica, they can't really pick and choose what players they want.
They can't really.
So,
and if you have a chance to get Greenwood in your national setup, no matter how damaging it is, it's like he's playing in CONCACAF. If it was a European side, it would probably have a lot more noise about it. But when it's in CONCACAF, not to shit in CONCACAF, who gives a fuck about CONCACAF?
But again, it's that sort of thing where like
there's three countries there.
Take the World Cup qualification, for example, because Jamaica didn't qualify for the World Cup in the end, I don't think. So like they would have been like again.
No.
They would have. It's entirely possible that they would have, like, if they had a few other players declared, they could have made it to the World Cup, and that was the incentive. But like I said, I think I suppose the other factor of it is that like how much of this is going to be a story if Spurs stay up is what I would say as well. Like how much will because ultimately De Zerbi's challenge here is to keep Spurs up, to just win a game for Spurs, win 2 games, maybe 3 games, and just at the very least keep them up. And again, this is the sort of kind of conundrum that Spurs have now at the moment, is that like to be fair to Spurs like kind of fan base, they do seem to be quite like upfront and saying they don't want people like that in their club at all costs, which is something admirable to see. But it is a sort of thing where like if he does end up keeping you up, and let's just say after this, like obviously the result against Sunderland is not ideal to start off that reign. But
not at all.
If he does secure enough points to keep them going, and there's something there with the Spurs team, like this is like De Zerbi is an excellent coach for what they have, because ultimately a lot of people wouldn't drink that poison chalice.
No.
I think it's also evident as well that Marseille is such a toxic club just generally. Like it's a mental club.
It's a bit mental. Yeah.
So
it's a dodgy move to make for him.
Yes.
At least he knows that he doesn't have a clause in his contract that he'll get sacked if they get relegated. So chances there they're probably thinking, right, if we stay up, great. If we don't, at least we have a good manager for the championship next season that will probably take him right back up. Now,
more than likely, yes.
How well they go back up, I don't know. But like having Spurs out of the league for a season is nuts. Could you imagine saying to someone last season, "Oh, Spurs are going to get relegated in 12 months"? You thought it was bad this year.
Yeah,
that Europa League win is going to do nothing for you.
Yeah,
absolutely nothing, and you feel sorry as well for. Why am I forgetting his name? Who did they sack the manager before they just said no, not Ange, after him.
As in like you mean Thomas Frank?
Thomas Frank. You have to feel sorry for Thomas Frank, because that was a ballsy move for him to make.
Yeah,
to go to Spurs after doing a great job at Brentford, and for it to absolutely capitulate in them almost instantly. Really, they had a first good 6 weeks gone.
Yeah, like it's again. I think it's a sort of thing where again we were talking about it a few podcasts ago. It's just something that just kind of snowballed, really. Really, once Daniel Levy kind of announced his departure, I think there was just such a power vacuum. Like ultimately, like they've had so many different approaches in a sense. I think what really kind of in a weird way, what kind of saved Spurs last season from absolute embarrassment was and just being a lightning rod for everything, in the sense where like basically shrugging off questions, going like, if you don't like my approach, fuck off, type of thing. And then
effectively that was and it was great. It was great to watch.
It's great to
what helped them as well.
What
helped them as well last season was every other team below them was so shite.
Yes. They would have got relegated last season if any of those teams had absolutely.
Yeah, like obviously they weren't going to get relegated last season, but they've come up here where only 2 of the teams are really shite.
Yeah. Again, I think it's very telling that Sunderland were able to beat them this season. Like again, the match was pretty unpleasant, but again, they still managed a goal. And again, this is it's just
an ugly win is still a win.
Do right now is a goal. It's a win.
Yeah, it's mad. And when you consider the talent in that squad, it's like who's going to stay when they go down to the championship next year?
Yeah, that's the scary bit. That's the scary bit.
Do some of them just go, look, it's one season in the lower league. It's not like championships a Sunday league either. It's arguably one of the top leagues in Europe, one of the top 6-7 leagues in Europe.
Yeah,
I mean, you know what I mean. So it's not like it's a massive step down, but it's like, did the players want to risk a season in the second division in England?
Again, it's what how they're going to be advised. It's how they reckon if they're able to kind of like pull themselves back up again. It's such a pot luck in a sense. It's very hard to tell. So they just really want to hope that it does. That just like again, the best advice is just don't get relegated.
The best advice, don't get relegated. Try and avoid that at all costs. At the same time, if you do get relegated, do you stay with them for the season? Like, at least next season won't be as depressing. You know what I mean?
Like, yeah,
it won't be as sad.
I say you wouldn't get relegated the season after, but that's anyway. We'll move on to that if it ever happens. So
yeah.
In any case, right, we're going to leave it here for tonight, lads. That's our podcast for this week. So we will be back in a couple of weeks' time to discuss what else happens in this dramatic run-in, because I think it's all pretty much going to be Premier League and Champions League from here on out here until we get until we get some level of World Cup fever, which is, I'll be honest, not great. I'll be honest. Kind of enjoying the fact that we're not there.
No, the fever just it isn't. I ain't feeling it. I gotta be honest.
Not for me, Clive. Not for me. But look, the Premier League is going to give us plenty of talking points anyway. As I said, we have like this, we have this running for the title. We have teams from like 6th down to possibly 14th looking at Europa League football because they're like 6 points separated, which is fucking insane. Spurs possibly getting relegated. We have a load of stories, and hopefully by the time that we are back on this podcast, we'll confirm Coventry as the next Premier League team. So
no, I think they got it, did they?
They're close. They are very, very close. Yeah. Yeah. I think if I at last kind of check, I believe they are 10 points clear. Yes, they are. So it's all subject to how Ipswich have 2 games in hand on them. So it depends on how what happens with them.
I thought the most recent draw was the one that actually mathematically got them up. Not championship.
Unofficially, officially, because Millwall's in third on 12 point there's a 12-point gap. And the goal difference is plus 31. So they are unofficially officially. So literally it is just like one more round and then they're through. And it is literally subject then to what happens with Ipswich then. So yeah. So that'll be something to unpack basically. Is Frankie Lampard getting back into the Premier League. So we'll see how that goes. And
good for him. Good for him. Good for Coventry. They haven't been in the league since
1999, I think.
Oh no! It was the 2000-2001 season was the last time they were in the league. So the Twin Towers were still very much in the skyline of New York when they were last in the Premier League. Yes. So if you want to put that as a marker, it's been a fucking while.
Yeah, I consider that's a point in time. All right, yeah, absolutely. So so yeah, with that then we'll leave it here for tonight. Aaron, thank you very much for joining on for this episode. And of course, thanks to Dave then for chiming in then with his contributions as well. And we'll see you on the next stun, because all of that was Liquid Football.